All right. Hopefully all is well with everyone. Hopefully everybody can see and hear me all right. Well, sorry, you guys can't. Let me flip this. Let's see. All right. Okay, I'm not sure. I think we got everybody on. And double check. Our signal should be all right. Let's see. Thank everybody for being on. Appreciate you. Give me a second. Alrighty. Everybody on with us. Hopefully so. Hopefully everybody can see us. Thank you for being on. I appreciate you. Alrighty. I think we're all right with everything. Let's see. Double checking everything. All right, mic check 1, 2. Can everybody hear me? Yes, no, maybe so. Yes, all right. Yes, great. All right. How's everybody doing? Shabbat, well, belated Shabbat Shalom. Belated Shalom Shalom. Okay, I think we can get started. I apologize, it's a little windy out here. Prayerfully, it won't be too much of a problem for you to be able to hear. Let's go ahead. May the words of my mouth and the meditation of mine heart be acceptable in Yahweh's sight. He is our strength and our Redeemer. And it is in His name, which is His authority, that we pray, praise, proclaim, project, and protect today's message, Aman, or today's session, Aman. Shalom, Anaik, Vaik, Chilit, to Christ, Shalom, Chi. Peace to everybody, peace to the brethren. How's everybody doing? I am Pastor Kofi, Pastor Servant to Christ, where we are always changing lives one mind at a time, being a voice of the voiceless and speaking the unspoken. I appreciate you. Thank you for those who were coming over. I know we had some ministerial staff coming over from ministerial prayer. So thank you guys for being on with us. Greatly appreciate your presence and your knowledge, and you're doing what God has called us to do. Thank you to everybody. We have all honor and praise once again, not only to the Most High for them, but for my wife, the Honorable Alma, to SOC, to the moderators, Lottie Dottie, everybody, those who are with us, against us, disagree, whatever the case might be, joining us on different platforms around the world at different times. Whatever the case might be, I'm thankful and grateful to have another opportunity to speak with you and be in front of you one more again. Prayerfully, this message hits the mark, and this message helps you to evaluate some things through the kingdom perspective. And so that's what we're here to do. So thank you everybody for being on. I appreciate you. Hopefully it's not too noisy and too windy during the session. We're going to go ahead and get ready to get started with our Bible pledge. If you're able to rise to your feet in reference of Yahweh's word, or however you can reference the word, we thank you for doing so in advance. And thank you, Brother Dwayne. I think I saw that you tried to call on the number. I apologize. When you tried to call, we were still in the midst of doing I was in the midst of doing the podcast. So it is my intention to get back in touch with you, but I thank you, and I saw that you did try to reach out. So just wanted to say that I apologize. And thank you to everybody for being on. We very much so appreciate you. So we're going to go ahead and get started. Let's get in. We're going to continue our Q&A session. I am trying to make sure that there's a person on before we get. I know I said I would start with a particular question, comment, concern, but until I see the person on. Oh, I see the person on. Okay, great. So we'll go ahead and start. But let's go ahead and get started. We're going to say our Bible pledge in just a bit. As we're waiting to get started with that, let's go ahead and get started. I apologize. Hopefully I can see all the names. How you doing, Sister Beck? How you doing? Sister Dawn, Auntie Marion, I saw a text coming from you, Auntie Mary, and I haven't had a chance to read it though, so please forgive me. I did see something come through. Thank you for your text, and I'll be checking in with you in a little bit. How you doing, Sister Carla, Jonald? I had a chance to touch on the email, but I still haven't caught up, bro. But I apologize. I'm not trying to leave you hanging. How's everybody doing? How you doing? And if I miss anybody, please forgive me. How you doing, Sister Michelle, Sister Monica, Erica, Ashisha, nobody, just my G30, not sure. Oh, okay. This is my G30. Randy, user 975-780, etc. Monique, Sister Judith, Canna Brits, Incorporated, Ricky Austin, Sister Greta. Oh, and Sister Greta, thank you. I opened up the package. Maybe I'll be able to grab it. It's a little ways away from me right now, but I might be able. I might have grabbed some and brought some with me. But thank you. Everything looks great. I wanted to show it to Elder Alma first before I show it to everybody else. So maybe I'll just wait and hold off until tomorrow. But thank you for all to do. And then some. I'm gonna send a little something else too because I wanted a bracelet, another olive bit or olive time, whichever one you want to send. A bracelet for myself, so I can have two of those on at some point. How you doing, Marcus? How you doing, user 47658? And if you guys like what I'm talking about and any of this stuff, feel free to contact us and we'll make sure that we get you what you need. How you doing, KK, Catherine, Nobody, Kathy, Linda, She Cakes, okay. Larry Lewis, how you doing, Double OG, Triple OG, Abraham, Mark, Deboski, William, Wes, Cookie, Eveline, Sally Mae, 51, Pop, Rita, Minister Morel, Brother Rodney, Sister Jennifer, Minister Stephen, LCB, everybody. If I feel like I'm missing somebody on different platforms, please forgive me. It's actually a little different than what I normally would have. It's actually a little more spread out, so please forgive me. I'm trying to do some of this or whatever. How you doing, Sister Allison? Shalom to everybody. Alrighty, so doing with Darius, if I didn't say so already, and everybody on all the different platforms. Thank you so much for being on. If you listen to the podcast later on, my apologies if it's super windy. I think it should be okay. But if it is, my apologies for you having to listen in a little harder. But we're thankful and grateful to everybody for being on. All righty. How you doing, Sister Beth? All righty. Talati down to everybody. And Brother Jacob's on. Thank you for being on, sir. Okay. So, let's go ahead and get started. All praises to the Most High. We're going to say our Bible pledge and jump right in. And we'll start with the question that we actually had for yesterday, but I wanted to make sure that a particular person was on who asked the question. So we'll start with that question today, and then we'll go from there. It's Q&A. I know I missed a couple of them yesterday as well, and I know that yesterday is a shorter. We really are only on like about a third of the time we normally are for Q&A on Saturdays. That's why we're making it up for today again. So feel free to ask questions, and whatever questions, comments, or concerns you guys give, that's the direction we shall go in. And we'll be led by Holy Spirit, of course, simultaneously. How you doing? All right, so here we go. This is my Bible. This is my sword. This will I trust. Trust for the Lord. No sword of God shall ever be heard. For this is my Bible, and this is Yah's word. It shall be covered. His name is authority, let it be done unto us. You may be seated to go back to what you do in the presence of the Most High Yah. And as I said, my apologies for the wind. It was not supposed to be windy, so of course it is windy, but it is what it is. I'm being honest, I need to start getting outside a little bit more. Y'all pray for me. I'm trying to save up. I should have been faithful last year after Feast of Tabernacles, and we still had a little something. And Elder Alma had suggested I get like a little kind of like bubble thing that I could do the lives in, and I could be outside no matter where I was, be protected. So, didn't get it then ran into some situations, and but prayerfully it won't be too much on you guys. I might even just bunker down, because to be honest, I need so much. I need to be outside, and we might even try to figure out how to get a tent or something like that, and at least you guys be able to hear me inside there or whatever. But I just need to start getting outside again. That's who I am at this point. But anyways, much love to everybody. Thanks for being on. How you doing, Sister Shima? Alrighty. So, and hey, how's that? I'm sorry, I can barely see out here. But House of Yah, how you doing? All right. So the question we're going to start with today is Q&A session once again. So feel free to have questions, comments, and concerns ready for us. We're going to come through the prism of the kingdom. I'm going to try my best again to open up the line on Clapper if persons want to call in through the Clapper app. Seems like we had a better. If persons would like to call in through there, that'll start sometime around 10. If everything goes well, sometime around 10 a.m. Eastern time, 10 a.m. New York City time. So if you are on and you'd like to actually call in, and if you're even in a different country or whatever, if you're able to get the Clapper app, or if you have something that helps with VPN and all that stuff, and you can go ahead and go there to make a call. Feel free to do so, and we will make sure that we open up the lines for you to do so. And you can ask questions about anything that you would like, right? We're going to come through the prism of the kingdom of heaven, through our culture. How you doing, Sister Mignon? As always, thank you, Sister Mignon, for checking on me. I appreciate you. I don't think I shot your text back yet. And thank you for all the stuff that you're doing behind the scenes, in front of the scenes, and yeah, thank you for all that you guys do. I'm going to be, like I said yesterday, I'm going to be leaning on you guys a little more. Something that's probably 7 years past due at this point. But I'm gonna start leaning on you all a lot more, because just not only as Yadatara, or Jethro, as we know him, not only is he made the point to tell Moses, but just in general is the truth. Like, hey, you need help, and that probably is a big part of it. Is that I might just have a little, I'm biting off too much, and as we're growing, a lot of stuff, it gets to a certain point and then it goes down. Even that's the reason why the deacons are in place, because apostles were doing what they could, but stuff starts looking bad, or you even start going through things if you're trying to do everything, right? So my goal is to establish kingdom and let it grow, and so that's what we're going to do. And so I think that's part of it, but also too, I thank you guys just for letting me be a human being and all that great stuff. So I want to say thank you to everybody for the stuff you guys do behind the scenes. For those who I'm going to ask, those of you who've been asking, I've been a lot better recently. If you ask, you're like, what can I do? I've been given assignments, so I don't mind giving assignments, but thank you all. So I say that again. Let's go ahead and get started. So the question, which is a few days past due, is basically, if you enter into, and it's really a bigger question, I'm going to give a bigger answer than that question to solidify it, but just to make it a point. So the question that I received, and I think I said shalom to you guys, Sister Michelle, Sister Monica, I believe I did. How you doing, Sister Deborah? And thank y'all for the love, like, share, subscription to the notification tab, donations, etc., etc. So this is what. Okay, I see the question, Auntie Marianne. I'm gonna come to you next. So this is what. Okay, before whoever that is answering. Oh, I didn't know. Yakanan rejected Elijah's duties for another role he filled. Yeah, y'all keep talking about that stuff. That doesn't make sense. Are you talking about Malachi? If you'd like to actually, okay, so you're somebody coming in from earlier, and you're one of the persons that even attacked me when I was saying we need to go ahead and take care of our women. If you'd like to actually stay on, whether you get the moderators deal with you or not, or whether I deal with you or not, they already got to you. I'll still answer your question, since y'all keep coming up on here acting like you guys are aware of something that you don't. But and you guys are twisting stuff because you guys don't live under a Messiah, and you're not even looking for the Messiah to come, which is very interesting. You're not doing offerings, you're not doing any of the stuff you're supposed to still be doing to keep the law, since the Messiah has not come, and yet you guys are still. Or if you're somebody who's agnostic or atheist, then this isn't for you anyways. But I'll answer that too. I don't mind answering it. If y'all actually were decent human beings and how you present yourselves, or at least I think you have the propensity to be, you have the ability to be, but you're not doing so. So since you're not doing so, but I'll answer it when I get to it. No, yeah, I knew exactly where you were going. Malachi chapter 4, verse 5, even though you don't talk about Malachi chapter 4 as a whole, and you don't talk about Malachi chapter 3, verses 1 and 2, right? And you don't talk about Zephaniah and Zechariah, and you don't talk about Revelation chapter 10. All those things go together, but you find in one little piece of something, and that's been a new thing that y'all are doing, like your 7 to 1 and all this stuff. You sound very familiar. So I will answer it in due season, right, when I'm led to. And You right, and if you feel like that means I'm cosplaying something, fine. I'm cosplaying somebody who's allowed to preach and to speak as led by Holy Spirit, not by you. And that's really what frustrates you because you're not in charge. And that's okay. One day I pray and hope that you'll be able to reach whoever you are. Really, I can't even do that because I would say I hope you would preach to who you want to. But the reality is, it seems like you're ready to lead persons astray. And that's all right. You know, you'll deal with whatever consequences come with that. In the meantime, we're going to do what we do, right? So you can tag along, stay on, try to go ahead and say stuff, listen to what I actually have to say, or you can just go ahead and leave. You've already been removed. Thank you, moderators. I appreciate you. All right, we're gonna do what we do. So, how you doing, Sister Shirley? So now, but I'm gonna still answer your question, but I got two in front of you, so you're just gonna have to wait, regardless, right? So, first question that popped up was this, and I'm going to go to a bigger thing in this because it basically is dealing with marriage as a whole, and something I'm learning more and more every day, and something that I deal with as a father, not only to Solomon but to other children. Right? If you, those of you who know, if you don't know, just in case I was married before, there's a whole bunch of stuff that happened with that, which I'm not going to go into all that per se, because it's not my responsibility to try and dog somebody out or whatever to make myself look better. But I have, been in a situation where I had children. And even when I got married the first time, I was married at like 19 to somebody that was way older than I, and I took on their son, and he's still my son, right? So, so I have a lot of some of even deeper, some of the stuff that I've gone through and deal with and stuff like that. Praise Yah, I have a great relationship with my children, trying to make it greater every day, but it is what it is. That being said, the question that was asked was this: if I get, basically in essence, if I get married to somebody, right? Do I marry, and can I just say this too before I start? How you doing, Sister Rachel? Can I just say this as well too to make this clear? Because I'm not caping up for any sides on this. But I want to be clear. I'm speaking about, obviously, if everything is perfect, is the best case scenario. There are obviously some situations to where there's a lot of headaches, and there's a lot of persons who don't do things. There's a lot of persons who are in families or in, what do you call it when the families marry in with children? Blended families. When there's a lot of persons who come in with blended families. And how you doing, Wagwan, Audrey? There's a lot of stuff that happens where, yeah, we could definitely say there's some situations that are not the norm, and there are persons who exacerbate situations, right, which make it difficult for persons in their positions to do what they need to do. So I'm going to make that very clear before we get into that, right? Because there'll be somebody, well, you talk about this and you talk about that, blah, blah, blah. I want to be very clear. I understand. I'm talking right. If most of this I'm talking about is if we can get things in perfection. Not everything is in perfection. There's healing involved. There's blending involved. There's belief system involved. There's who comes first involved. All this stuff. So there's a lot of stuff that goes with this question. That being said, the question basically is: if I get married to somebody, right? How involved should I be with the things that they bring in, such as children? We could even make it like past debts. How much so is our being one, right, supposed to be one concerning things, right? And the person who asked said that basically you have two sides, right? You have one spouse that says, one thing as far as how much they should be involved, one spouse that says the other. And a lot of times this comes with communication issues. So I'm answering a topic that is not a one-size-fits-all topic, right? Especially for this particular question. And obviously, if there's certain things, the person, they know who they are. If they want to have further conversation down the road, offline with this, we can definitely set something up, because there are some questions that I would further want to ask, just in case I'm not, to be honest, there's a great chance I'm not going to answer everything. So those who ask the question and those who are aware of who's asking the question, whatever, I would ask that you guys, don't make it very clear that I'm talking about you, right? This is some stuff that really is a question that I'm going to answer, but obviously there's some things that should be answered offline. Amen? Amen? So some of you are like, why are you skirting around this? It's because there's certain things that I would want to ask, and there's certain things as far as, obviously I'm not trying to make everybody, certain person's business your business, but they did ask a question. They asked about it for different things or whatever. So I'm going to attempt to answer them, Q&A, and then, and I'm not even sure, now that I think about it, I'm not even sure if it's something that they necessarily want. It was just something that was asked, and I was checking through our text messages to see if we got any questions. So I'm going to be very delicate with how I answer this. That being said, when we talk about a marriage and we're talking about blended families, obviously what we would like to happen with any marriage is oneness, right? Is oneness. Now, there's a bunch of stuff that happens that we have to be honest about, right? There's a bunch of stuff that we have to be honest about, right? When we talk about a blended family and persons coming together. And first things first, when we're talking about oneness, the oneness that so oneness is holistic, holy on all levels. But if we're going to talk about the levels of oneness, the levels of, and remember, if it's being, if we're talking about only being with somebody, remember that word means onely. It's a compound, or it's not a compound word per se. It has a suffix, the ly, ly on it, which talks about how we do it. So one ly only means only. That's where that word comes from initially and originally. And how you doing, Sister Tabitha? And thank y'all for sharing the live, all that great stuff. So if I'm in a relationship with somebody and I'm supposed to be onely with them, right? That's what only means, right? Forsaking all others, right? Onely or only being with Yahweh, right? Is the key, right? So if I'm in a relationship of any kind with anybody, first things first, this is why we have to come out of a mindset. We have to heal from some things, because first things first, if we had done things correctly, which once again, I raised my hand. Obviously, I'm somebody, former divorcee, somebody that, got married young, somebody that if I look back at certain things, I probably, not no probably about it, I shouldn't have been, and not just because of the other person, even because of me, not knowing what a husband fully was, and I hadn't even made it to age 21 yet, and then age 22, supposed to receive an inheritance in my work, find a necessity for a wife, a lot of different things. So a lot of us fall short in these things, right? I had to relearn some things, and some things I wasn't strong enough in as well. So I don't want to use this as a session to bash anybody, right? That being said, when we come into a relationship, the goal should be, if we were raised properly, right? That's why we're trying to redo this and maneuver again, maneuver again. If we are coming into relationship with somebody, first things first is we should be onely with Yah, right? We should be married unto Him, because anything that is His becomes ours, and therefore anything that is ours becomes His, right? Which means that we don't allow anything to stop us from being in a relationship with Yah, all right? From the jump. How you doing? Is it Nadir or Nadir? Not sure how to pronounce it. This being part of the community. I have to be only with Him, only or onely with Him. That's first things first, which means that I had to, and this is something I had to go through, right? I had to literally, and I still didn't do it all the way properly. I was still learning. That being said, my wife and I, before we met each other, we became a husband and a wife first. How you doing, Roots man? Wagwan, how you doing? So we became onely, right? I became only, only Yahweh's wife in the spirit, if you will, right? Right? I became a husband in what He is by becoming one and connected to Him. So anything that I was bringing, including things that I brought from past relationships, past marriage, past whatever, I had to release it. Anything I was bringing in that was not of Him, right, had to be released. That makes sense, right? And it seems like a simple thing. It seems like something that's common, but I'm not coming to you with common sense. I'm coming to you with kingdom sense, right? You're a royalty, right? We're going to do that royalty series, right? Starting tomorrow, we're going to have some royalty stuff popping up. Look out for it. If you miss it, it'll be recorded, right? And classes are going to be recorded and sent out to you guys too. I'm working on a bunch of classes. You'll get a bunch of them in a row. And then we'll still try to make sure we catch up on some Zoom stuff for Q&A for a few days, okay? For those who are, like I said, I'm just I talked about it yesterday. We still on track, I promise you. All right. So I need you to recognize and realize that first things first, a lot of us have having issues with marriage, because if you're not one with Yah, you already messed up. Now, if you're not one with Yah and one becomes one with Yah, or both of you become one with Yah over time, great. But then you still have to recognize that there's a lot of stuff that we are keeping, and a lot of stuff that is our way of thought process from times of old that doesn't fit into the kingdom. Even if we meant well when we received it, or even when we meant well when we were in the world, it doesn't mean that it fits into the kingdom. Even if we meant well when it was great for another relationship, you must recognize that it doesn't fit in. I've heard a person's, and this has always been wild and weird to me, men and women both do this, but I'm just happening to talk about a woman that I heard say this before, and it doesn't make sense. I've heard multiple women say this, actually, where there was a woman going out with a guy. She made it a point, and they were trying to see if they were going to be husband and wife. She made a point to say, oh, well, I already know what a wife is because I was with this guy before, who she never considered herself to be married to, but hey, they live like a husband and wife. She said basically nobody can really, I don't need to be taught what it is to be a wife, because I was in a relationship and I had a guy who taught me, what it was to be a wife, blah, blah, and what he needs as a husband. And I had to tell her, well, that's not only. It's not only because that's what he needed. Now, there's some things that both, if you get another husband, but if you're talking about a husband, there's something that your husband needs, right? Like, you might have made peanut butter and jelly sandwiches for one guy, but the next guy, he might be allergic to peanut butter. You see what I'm saying? And that's a very surface level thing, but you get the context. And how you doing, Michael? Thanks for sharing, right? If you don't believe in covenant, which includes y'all, that marriage is not for you, that's right. So a lot of persons will talk about marriage and stuff, but it's like, oh, time out, hold fast. You're forsaking all others. You can't come in, right? Who said that yesterday? Was it Sister Shirley who said, made a mention of that, or whatever we were doing at the time? When you talked about, taking, well, we try to take new wine and put it in an old wineskin, right? You got to realize that nobody is like your husband, nobody's like your wife, right? That mean, and brothers do this all the time. I have to correct brothers all the time when they be like, man, I wish that she was like so and so. That's coveting. That's not your wife. She can maybe do some things in similarity, of course, and there's some things structurally and scripturally, etc., that she should do. But we are not going to play this weird game. Excuse me. Where all of a sudden we're going to pretend that she should act like so and so, because that's not who you married. How you doing, Brother Jermaine? Right? And since that's not who you married, it would be unfair of us to ask her to become something that she's not. Now, this is why, once again, from the beginning, if we had this stuff straight and we stopped acting like dating was biblical, and we stopped acting like the way the world does it, to where the world is just out here saying try as many options as you want and telling you not to slut shame, as if we're calling somebody a slut. First of all, we're not even calling somebody a slut, but if that's what you're saying we are, I'm just going to say if the shoe fits, wear it. If it don't, take it off. And that's for men and women, right? Can I just throw that out there too? Because before I hear somebody, male or female, come on here and hit me with some, oh, you're slut shaming, blah, blah. If there's a dude and he's sleeping with girls that he don't even want to have a relationship with, in our culture, I won't say they're a slut. I won't call that dude a slut. But dude is definitely not kingdom. That's not what we do. That's not how we operate, right? Why would you want to lay down with somebody? Matter of fact, to be honest with you, why would you open your legs, or why would you give your seed? Why would you penetrate somebody? Why would you allow yourself to become one with somebody that you're not going to be, that you don't even know if you're going to be with in 6 months? Some of you don't know if you're going to be with them the day after you sleep with them. It doesn't make sense. It's not kingdom, right? A spade is a spade. Right? If look, I've told persons before, I was into pornography, right? You could technically say, because I did a couple of extracurricular things, if I be honest, but I never penetrated a woman until I got married, right? Does that mean that since I was into porn and stuff, does it mean that I am not guilty of what we call today fornication? I am guilty of it because I was looking at pornography. I was lusting after persons. And yeah, I even did a couple of extracurricular things. So even if I didn't lay in the bed with somebody and do that, I still did do certain things that are against the law. So I broke the law in that regard, correct? Right? So a spade is a spade. See, and by the way, in that phase that I was in that time when I was addicted to that stuff, right, if we talking about if a man thinks it, then he did, then I'm worse off than some of the persons who were there, because they might have only laid down with 2-3 persons, and here I am, probably had, hundreds if not thousands of persons in my head. And to watch it, one of the things that really got me is that to watch it, you have to comprehend and understand that you're not only looking at the female, but you're looking at the male, which means that you're guilty of a couple different things. We don't think about it that way, right? We just go, oh, it's cool because you imagine, and yeah, if you're imagining yourself being in a position, you've already done it, right? And if you decide you've done it, you're doing some weird thing, even trying to possess somebody's body to do whatever it is that you're trying to do. There's some weird stuff going on, is it not? How you doing, boss man? Right? How you doing? Shalom to you. So you see what I'm saying? But we don't want to talk about these things, but we're starting to see the damage that's done. Right, we're starting to see the damage that's done. So first of all, we have to recognize that we're coming together to be one, and we have to begin before we even get into being with somebody else. First things first, I've got to shed a lot of those things that I came in, that I would come into a relationship with, because I can't bring that stuff in to where now I'm still doing that to somebody I'm with. I did though. I did. This is the truth, right? So I had to ask for forgiveness. I had to repent. I had to make sure that I recognize that it's wrong. and I have to make sure I don't do that again. So this comes to a bigger place because now when we come in, especially, and I can talk about this from experience, if I come into a relationship with somebody and I'm coming into a relationship where I have children, right? You said your young days were really bad. Well, there you go, right? We learn, right? But we're trying to teach and we're trying to make sure that we repent and make sure that we say, we're not saying it's okay. It was never okay. We're not going to do this hip hop thing where, oh no, man, I'm just pretending and just doing, no. It was never okay. It was never okay. We're not gonna do this thing. Oh no, man, it's all right that I told everybody to sell drugs, and then all of a sudden everybody drugged up, right? And I told everybody to be on lean, but now hey, I'm not your example. I shouldn't be your role model. I shouldn't be. But these cats, they learn what they learn from you. You told them that you were that number one. You told them you was that. You told them you was that ninja. Self-edit real quick. You told them you was that ninja. You told them that don't nobody do what you do. You told them that they should lay down. You told them watch this, money, power, respect. Right? That's what y'all think. Money, power, respect. But what gets you money, power, and respect? Or what's the sign of money, power, and respect? They talk about they talk about the lust, the what is it? The lust of the flesh, the lust of the eyes, and the pride of life all day. That's what these cats are talking about. Even cats who are, you swear up and down, are trying to give you righteous stuff. Listen to J. Cole's album, The Fall Off, for those of you who like stuff or whatever, and it's going to be a hard listen for some of you. So maybe some of you shouldn't if you can't hear somebody curse or whatever. But listen to the album The Fall Off. He's supposed to be enlightened and this and that or whatever. And listen how many times he talking about, oh, I can pull this one or I make more money, da da. That's why he can't be. We have to realize and recognize we have a weird thing that we come in with, men and women, right? Women come in with a little Kim phase, or right, or we want the women. We acknowledge that persons are divas, which by the way, be careful with that diva thing. That's a spirit. But we like women to have a diva spirit, but then somehow, some way, try to act like that's holy and righteous. And we're bringing in things into marriage that don't make sense. And thank you, moderators. I don't know what was said, but I appreciate you. So we're having a weird thing that's going on where persons are saying that they're kingdom, but are trying to bring in all this other stuff. It's like, and I'm not trying to speak ill of him just because, but Kevin on stage is falling into that, right? Or Kevin on stage, you watch his children grow up. They were supposed to be the couple, the Christian couple, and they actually became the Christian couple. And now their children are cursing and stuff like that, and they're out here doing things and drinking things and eating things they're not supposed to, etc. But telling you, hey, you know what? No, you can be successful and still do those things and still love God. But that's why we don't worship God. We worship Elohim, because we should have no version of God right in front of Him. But persons are bringing this stuff into relationship, right? And so they were doing these things. We were even going to church, and persons were allowed it. Persons knew that you had all these persons going on. Persons knew that you had all these, all these relationship. Persons were dating each other in church behind the scenes, right? And persons knew. But hey, it is what it is. It was gossip. It was gossip. It was fodder for gossip, and persons let it go. Persons knew that so and so was on the stand and they were homosexual, right? They were leading the choirs and they were doing this, but nobody cared because they made us dance, right? And all they had to do was sprinkle some Jesus on what they did. So all this stuff, it kind of comes to the same thing with the marriage. We've got to first and foremost get rid of anything that's out of line with Yah, because it's going to affect your house. I'm gonna say that part again. Before you get into any kind of covenant with a spouse, right? Kingdom spouse, which is always key, because you should find a wife, right, who's already qualified to be a wife in the kingdom. A husband should already be qualified to be a husband, and only a husband should be seeking a wife. If you are not a husband, leave her alone. And if you are not a wife, let him know from the jump that's not who you are. But we should know enough in the kingdom and have been trained enough that we're not even functioning and looking at things in that manner. Does that make sense? Right? Hopefully that makes sense before we even go further. Because if somebody's thinking about this stuff, or somebody talking about it, somebody agitated about their spouse, woo, 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 right? Woo, 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 all this stuff. First things first. If I were to look at your life, right, and I were to say, remember, was it 1 Timothy chapter 3? If you desire the office of a pastor, of a prelate, of an assembler, you desire excellent work. First things first, though, can we say that you follow the law? Secondly, can we say that you rule your house well in subjection? Brother, you are going to be the pastor of your house. And so before you come into something, are you prepared? You don't have to be prepared to pastor a whole bunch of persons, but as a man, can you pastor your house? Wives, are you ready to love your husbands in the manner that you say you love your husband. Not the same way, in the manner of. You're not submitted to the man. It's not submission. It's called submission. Are you ready to be submitted to a mission that's greater than your husband and follow him as he follows the mission, which is to follow him as he follows Christ? If you haven't made sure that he'll follow Christ and you get with him, then be prepared for things to happen in your relationship that are anti-Christ. All right? You see how that happens both ways? Okay, so now that we have that, and we have to get onely with Yah. We have to leave things behind that we're bringing in that are going to destroy your marriage. You can try to make as many excuses for it as possible, but these things are going to destroy your marriage. It is what it is. You don't have to like what I'm saying, but you need to love it because it's the word. That means you don't have to feel emotionally attached to it to that where it makes you bubble up and gives you goosebumps, but you need to make sure you act upon it if you want your marriage to be a kingdom marriage. All right. So now that you get that, now the next part. If somebody's coming in with anything, children, debt, things like that, there needs to be a conversation from the beginning. And also, see, this is once again kingdom. See, because if that does happen initially in the kingdom, it should only really be happening because of because of righteousness. In other words, what should be happening is that the only reason you get in a divorce, what should be happening, really, if everything was righteous, there would be no divorce, right? That being said, though, what should be happening is okay. I, I'm 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 doing I'm doing better. Maybe I'm coming in because I was in a relationship with somebody and I messed up and I cheated. And since I messed up and I cheated, right? Like I lost my relationship, but I've gotten better. Or it should be happening is, hey, I I, I was in a relationship, somebody cheated on me. It is what it is. And now I'm trying to reconnect and trying to grow and trying to be in a marriage again with somebody else, right? That's basically the main two. Now, obviously, we deal with more things nowadays. There's persons who are conniving. There's persons who beat women. There's persons who beat men. There's persons who, are thieves. There's persons who go to prison. And even in that, by the way, depending on what's going on, it doesn't necessarily mean this is why we're supposed to have relations. We're supposed to have culture and stuff. There's a bigger conversation that needs to be had because we're not supposed to just automatically just be like, first things first, I get a divorce. The only thing you can really deal with that, there's two reasons for divorce. One is more, both of them are really deeper than what we talk about, but adultery is one, right? Which is the main one we own, but then fornication is another. Persons don't even think fornication has to do with being married, but Christ talks about that in Matthew chapter 5, in the Sermon on the Mount, Matthew chapter 5, verses 27 through 32, right? Where he talks about how basically you need to make sure that you don't commit fornication or adultery, right? Fornication is that, going back to that word we talked about earlier. It actually comes from a word porneia, or what we were talking about today, pornography. Pornography actually means a false image of marriage, because in the kingdom and in of the culture in the culture of Yehadashah, sex is marriage, marriage is sex. Those who are qualified for marriage are qualified to become one. Those who are not qualified for marriage are not qualified to become one. If you become one with somebody, you enter into an immediate covenant until death do you part, unless there is fornication or adultery. Fornication being a false image of marriage. Now, in the case of fornication, you are supposed to come before some persons in the assembly who are put together specifically and strategically to ensure that we actually talk through what's going on and make sure that if there is any separation or any kind of divorce, it comes through lawful means, because something has actually gotten to a place where you shouldn't. Not just you doing things, because we have this false image of marriage too, where we think that marriage is just about you. When marriage is, when you're not just getting married, when you get married, it affects the entire community. Hashtag we be the nation, right? So if we're a nation, when you get married, the nation is influenced. If your husband is doing well, the nation is influenced. If your wife is doing well, the nation is influenced. If your children are doing well, the nation is influenced. If any of them are not doing well, the nation is influenced. Your marriage is not just for you. How you doing, Elder Tamara? Praying for you. Hopefully you're feeling better, right? I know you said you're feeling a little better. Praise Yah, right? How you doing, Culture Prospect? See, so we're going to just be honest about marriage in this candid discussion that we are having. If we are just going to be honest about marriage, first things first, are you married to Yah? Which means that in order to be married to him, have you separated and stopped cheating with the world? Are you completely, right, focused on your marriage with him and doing things through the prism of being one with him? If so, Now are you ready to open yourself up to a covenant in flesh, to where two become one? If that's the case, right, then you have to start getting rid of certain things or preparing yourself even in the meantime. Remember, even sisters, when it talks about putting oil in your lamp, that was a thing that Israelites did, because they were supposed, the Israelite women were supposed to be preparing themselves for a husband who was preparing a place for his wife, building a mansion, an add-on to his father's property, right? Once he finished with the or his father's house. Once he finished building onto the house, then his father would send him to go get his bride. His bride should have oil in her lamp. She should always be prepared, and every day she should be making sure she's getting ready for him. And the parents would have agreed on terms, dowry, all this stuff. Everything's already prepared. So he's just showing up when his father says, hey, as a husband who has been married, who has raised you, who knows, by the way, probably we would have been living in the same communities, so probably even knows about who this person is, would have said, okay, now that I know that this is prepared for her, and she would have been preparing herself for you, right? I'm going to send her. And now the parents who have been making sure they've been training the daughter and getting her ready and making sure she's right and everything, are preparing her for the husband's return. That's why Yehoshua is returning for his bride, with a Hisham. I'm sorry, how boutique? If you married, if you a married bachelor, if you're a married bachelor, she don't think there's a covenant. I'm sorry, I don't, and I might not know. To be honest with you, I might not have great etymology with the word boutique. I'm not used to it being used that way. I'm sorry. How about possibly if you marry bachelor, and or if you're saying that your wife, are you saying your wife's unfaithful? I don't even get that. And if that's the case, then obviously we just talked about what that is. But I'm not sure. um, but if it is, then there's some things that need to be talked about. If she's not being faithful, by the way, you're still with her. If you're still with her, right? By the way, there's no saying that you guarantee that you just have to leave because somebody's been unfaithful. That's between you and Yah, Holy Spirit, all that stuff. But also too, praying about it, seeking Yah, and seeing what you're there for. Also too, what are the things that you're doing on your end? Because we have examples like Hosea. Now he's an extreme example. We have examples of Hosea, who's not allowed to leave. We have examples of persons where it's, and even Yehoshua says, even if you can, the goal is still hopefully that you would try to stay because marriage is that important. Obviously, there are certain things to where you may not be able to come back, and if somebody breaks covenant, when they break covenant, they broken contract. If you decide to stay, then you decided to stay. Right? So if that person did you wrong, or if you think they're doing this, if you think they're doing that, because that's oftentimes the case too, well, then that's another conversation that we need to have. Why do you think they're doing that? What are some conversations as far as, hey, what are your love languages? What does it mean when this person says, I'm stepping out to do blah, blah? Have they automatically assumed certain things? Are they doing stuff that's fishy? Like, are they flirtatious? Do you mean like that? There's a lot of different things, but that's a different conversation, right? And that's something where you have to talk offline, because like I said, certain things that I don't think we should do online. Some person's going to press it to where, okay, we do it, but certain things we shouldn't be just putting everybody's business out about certain things, right? How you doing, Brother Thomas? Right. And also too, if you feel like that about that person, have you told that person specifically in a manner that's loving, that's righteous? Because just because they acting the fool doesn't mean that you get to act the fool. You can be angry and sin not. You can have righteous indignation, right, and sin not. So there's a lot of stuff we could talk about in that. But that being said, so now when we talk about bringing children and things of that nature, I need you to recognize and understand that this is why we should be raising children from a young age on what marriage is. Unfortunately, our children see us split up, but don't see us stay together. And even when our children see us get together with somebody else, we don't make sure that they are prepared for that. If you're coming into a marriage, once again, it's not just about two persons becoming one. Two persons are becoming one, but the whole community is affected. First things first, your family, your children, your grandchildren, whomever they be, will be affected. Right? They will have stepbrothers and stepsisters that they won't call stepbrothers and stepsisters. Right? They might have younger siblings that they never expected to have. Right? These are things that have to be talked about, because what we usually do, even in the so-called blended family, is we'll come from a position in a place to where we go, okay, cool, I had these baby blah blah, but it's like, no, if you're coming in to my life, right? Let's say I'm in a relationship, I'm representing the male side, right, the husband side. If you're going to be my wife, well then I need you to recognize these are my children. This is what happens. Da, da, da. Also, on the husband side, though, I need to go to those children, and I need to make it a point not just to say, hey, I'm marrying this woman, da da. I need you to recognize that, biblically speaking, she comes first, right? If we mess this up, because we say our babies come first because our babies were here first. Some of you are even married and still will say, well, just because he was there first or she was there first, my babies come first. That's not kingdom. It's not. And if you're not in a relationship where you feel somebody should be given that status, either you're not ready for it or they're not ready for it, and you shouldn't be having children with them. Straight up. Because these children don't deserve what we put them through sometimes. I'm not trying to blame anybody. I'm not trying to say y'all did that, right? If the shoe fits weird, if it doesn't take it off, there's forgiveness, there's repentance, there's all that. But you don't put your children before your spouse. And everybody's like, and persons get upset with the quickness with that. Oh no, you don't understand. See, that's what's wrong with society, and that's blah blah. And see, these children wouldn't be getting abused if it was time out. When you got married to that person, were they kingdom? I see, and don't get this confused. I'm not asking did the person go to church, because that don't mean they kingdom. And if we can be honest, right, just in case there's any confusion, I'm not asking if this person is in a camp, because that doesn't mean they're kingdom. I'm not asking if this person is SOC. If they SOC, prayerfully they are kingdom, but that's why we're supposed to check them. You said Christ hates pastors. Matthew 23. Yeah, that's a stretch. Put it like this: does Christ? Well, put it. You probably don't believe this then, so you don't believe anything that John says, right? You wouldn't. The person's already gone. That's a weird statement. You hate pastors, and maybe you hate what a pastor's done. And there's some pastors that aren't necessarily called and call themselves pastors for sure. But using using Christ as an example, because all these persons who are in the Bible, who are pastors, male and female, who are judges, male and female, who are prophets, male and female, who are preachers, male and female, etc. Uh, um, every single one of them has to be under Christ. So anything else in the Bible that you're talking about, including Matthew, which is interesting, because if you use Matthew, who you call an apostle really is just a priest, right? You're using a Greek term, apostolos. So you can't use a pastor or a priest talking about Yahashua to then verify that Yahashua doesn't want you to learn from priests when it's the priest writing that tells you in your mind that, that an assembler or a pastor is somebody that can't be listened to. All praises to the Most High, right? So we have to learn from different things. Yeah, we all learn from our errors, right? We all learn from our errors, and we have these weird things that we come in. But yeah, so we have to learn how to do that. And what happens a lot of times is a lot of different things. So yeah, when we come together, there should be a meeting of the minds. This stuff is supposed to happen before the marriage. And if there's problems, yeah, and there's sometimes where children aren't going to be on board with it, especially if they're adults. There's going to be times when it's hard to get certain things that are there. How you doing, Sister Sterling? There's going to be times when a lot of this stuff is difficult to deal with. We're not going to pretend that it's not. But just because it's difficult doesn't mean it shouldn't be dealt with, and it would be less difficult if we dealt with it properly from the jump. Let the difficulty be at the beginning. That's something that I'm learning, is that let the difficulty be at the beginning. Tell somebody from the jump, hey, man, that's not right. Or tell somebody from the beginning, hey, if we're going to, look, if like my wife and I, when we got together, I've talked about this before. Um, I told my wife, I'm going to be a Christian. I'm going to be an assembler. I'm going to be a pastor. I'm going to do about what the word says. I'm not 100% sure what that is. I know it doesn't look like church though. And even though you're meeting me as I'm doing the assistant pastor thing at the time for the church, I want you to know, ultimately, I'm not. We even had conversation about what's a first lady. Because I was like, to be honest, first lady is a position that has to do with an office, the presidency and stuff like that. And I get there talking about the office of pastor or bishop or whatever, and apostles and all that. So they're trying to say that you're the first lady of the office of the church or whatever. But I was like, that's not biblical in the Bible. We don't have first ladies. So I told my wife, I was like, ultimately, look, we'll develop what this is, and you can call it whatever you want. If you decide to call it first lady, blah, blah, but I told her from the beginning, like, hey, I'm called to this, and we're doing this, blah, blah, but we need to figure this out because we have a walk, right? We have an assignment. And I'm not going to do things based off of what everybody else in the world is doing, right? I'm going to do things based off of what the kingdom of heaven declares that we should do, right? Had that conversation from the jump. What happens is persons get married, and then all of a sudden they start trying to figure out, oh well, what you want, and blah blah, and this and that, and I'm first lady this, or I don't want to be first lady. Blah blah. Well, have the beginning, have those conversations. How you doing, section? Have conversations from the jump. What do those babies need from the jump? What is it that you need as a husband from the jump? What is it that you need as a wife from the jump? What are the things that you're coming in with that are problematic from the jump? And as you learn, as you grow, right? Right. Also making the point that every time you make a move, there's a bishop I was under a long time ago, Bishop Jenkins. He's under actually a pastor, Pastor Jenkins. If you know about First Baptist Church of Glenardo, right? Big church in Maryland, and he was under him. And he told me one time, he said, "Hey, one of the things that I learned is Holy Spirit told me a long time ago is whenever you get new revelation or anything new or anything to go or anything that's been brought to your eye, he said, go back and find your wife. In other words, anytime that I realize that, like Jehovah says, the nation's going to do this, anytime we're going to start preaching this, anytime we're going to start doing holy days, this, anytime, blah, blah, my wife will know before anybody else. Anytime I'm talking about we're going to travel here, we're going to travel, blah, blah, hey, make sure your wife knows first, right? Deal with those things first at home, one of them, only. Yeah, now they got first name. Yeah, that's kind of that's wild too, right? Deal with those things firstly and onely with your wife, right? Jehovah's going to deal with you obviously before that because he's the one giving us vision. But make sure your wife or your husband are aware of that. Even if they're not going to comprehend, even if they don't go with it right away, the fact that at least it's being positioned as, hey, this is something that the Most High has given me is going to help a lot, right? And that's one of the things that's hard because it's trying to play catch up. But that also works in the negative side as well, as far as, hey, every time I realize I've got to change, I go back to my wife. Hey, babe, you know what? You've been telling me this for like 5 years, but I apologize. I was doing this, I was doing that. It's been brought to my attention. I see Holy Spirit leading me. I've been looking at the Word. I've been looking at my life. We would have been so much further if I had just done what you said. I'm going to try and do go to her first, and go to her woman, right? Then have the same energy that you had before. You could tell everybody why, even though nobody knew you was beefing or whatever. But hey, if you could tell everybody that you were going to do blah blah, and now what you said is something that your wife been saying, make sure that she knows, and then keep the same energy going and say to everybody, whoever you're dealing with publicly, yes, I blah blah, right? But I'm saying all that I don't want to get too deep into that part, but all that just being said, that yeah, it's two becoming one, and there's parameters, there's boundaries, but knowing that your spouse comes first is key because everybody has to be on board with that, and your children must be on board with it, right? Your children must be on board with it. It is what it is. Even if you have, now watch the blended family part, even if you have somebody who prayerfully has a relationship with the spouse that's not in the home, right? So let's say you are a mother, right? You single mother, you have, children. Prayerfully, your children have a relationship with their father, right, on the end, and it could be vice versa to this particular situation, right? So the mother, single mother, has children. She has somebody that she used to be with. Prayerfully, the children have a relationship with them. This is sometimes the case, right? And then and then let's say you get married to somebody else. Your child doesn't necessarily need to stop respecting their father, right? But at the same time, they need to know, hey, I'm getting married. My husband comes first, right? I'm getting married. My husband comes first. You need to let it be known to the person that you used to be with. Hey, I'm getting married. My husband comes first. And you don't have to say those words out loud, but your actions should speak louder than your words in that regard to everybody. To everybody in the relationship. Everybody's going to be around it, right? Your husband will come first, right? There were persons. Um, is this the place for that? Okay, I'm just gonna keep it real. I'm not gonna mention the person's name, right? And it's not really that important, but let's put it like this, right? There are even a couple situations with that's been under me. Some of you know about this, some of you don't, right? Some of it goes back further than what you would even know. Some of it's the stuff that you would know about, right? But there's been several situations, several not meaning the number seven, but there's been like two, three over some years now, and I'm talking about going all the way back because SOC go back to 2005, right? Officially, 2004, 2005. There were situations where persons got married, and didn't get married righteously as far as the way we're supposed to, right? Um, and one of the things that happened in every single one of them, if I just be honest, one of the things that happened with every single one of them was that the spouse didn't come first. And I'm not saying who did it, what side did it, whatever. I'm telling you, there's somebody who would find out, oh, so and so's doing this, so and so together, so and so married, so and so living with each other, whatever, right? Somebody's not respecting and honoring the fact because that's something that guaranteed if you went through us, that's required. And if you're not ready, we're not gonna marry you. For one case, that's the reason why they even did it, right? Right? But that's something that has happened, right? And so when that happens, I was able to see right up front, even trying to, okay, well now you guys are together. Let's see if we can make it work after the fact. Yeah, y'all can work out all things together. But if you don't come in from the beginning and have that in your mind, right, and make sure that that's how we operate no matter what, it's not gonna work. That's all I'm gonna say about that, right? Because some of y'all be looking for me to give other details and stuff. Ain't nobody business. But it's got to be righteous from the jump, right? And I'm not here telling you who can go to heaven and who can go to hell. I told y'all before, I don't have no heaven or hell to put you in, right? The Most High, He got the keys. We just talked about that. He gave the keys to the star that fell down and opened it up and opened it up so that Abaddon and them would come out, right? You said they made you. Well, I don't know about that. Who is this? I don't know who this is. They made you marry her because of that child, even though God told you then you knew what she would be. Okay. So, and once again, this is why I say it's not a one size fits all, and I get that. Here's the problem. This is why we say from the beginning, but a shot from beginning, right? In beginning, we gotta get this stuff together first, because here's the deal. When somebody says they made me marry her because of the child, as far as the Bible is concerned, sex is marriage, marriage is sex. You laid down and had the child. If you hadn't laid down, the child not there, and you're not even talking about this and that and feeling pressured or feeling convicted. But it's lawful if you're gonna get somebody pregnant to make sure that you take care of the baby, right? And by the way, if she was willing to lay down, I'll give you this. Granted, if she was willing to lay down with you before y'all were actually approved, righteously to be married, and right, then she wasn't ready to be a wife. But if you were willing to lay down with her, let's just keep it a buck now. Work both ways. If you were willing to lay down with her, right, before you were righteously in position to make sure, and you knew that this wasn't even the woman that you should be with forever, then that means that you fell short too. This is why I said this we got part of this is we got to go back to the beginning and fix the mindset from the beginning. And we don't like it when persons say this. We don't like it. We feel like that's somebody trying to call this and that or whatever, but it's the truth. You said your ex-wife lied to you. You realize you wanted a child too much, and that's why you married her. You wanted a child. Well, even in that, if you married her, you wanted a child. We got to correct that. We don't marry. Watch this. We should never marry somebody because we want a child. Matter of fact, and I'm not trying to say, obviously this comes with it, and there's a joy, and there should be a bubbliness, and yes, you should be prepared to be a parent. That's not what I'm saying. But watch this part. You ready? Let's go deeper. Why is it that a husband even sees the value and the necessity of a wife? Kingdom. Kingdom. We're not talking common sense. I'm not talking the commoners, right? Kingdom sense. All right, let's keep it a kingdom. Let's keep it a buck. Let's keep it a hundo. Why is it biblically that a man even see, or a husband, not a man, right? Man is the first part. That's just when you turn 16 officially, right? We train you to be a husband, but then you still got to be trained on what it is to be a father. Then we give you your inheritance when you're 22. It's supposed to be a completely different thing. That being said, in our culture, when you're given your inheritance, what is the first thing that we send you to do? We give your inheritance. We say, here, you got some land, you got a place to stay, you got money in your pocket. Your father's business is your business now. And then what's the first thing that you got to do? It's hinted on in 1 Timothy chapter 3. It's told to us in Genesis chapter 2. Before Adam received Ayashar, before Adam received helpmeet, or before we would say today, before man received woman, what is the first thing that a husband should do? You said can't even be mad when you see the fault. You as the individual have also played. Yeah. Right? I mean, you have righteous indignation, but yeah, at the end of the day, you got to take what you did. That's right. First thing that you do is you are supposed to have what? You have a work. Every husband should have a work. Yeah, submit to Elohim. Yes, of course, right? That's the basis, right? We're talking about before the woman shows up, so you should be submitted to him before the woman shows up, right? And we said that earlier too, by the way. So you on point. How you doing, Miss Funnymore? Right? How you doing, Killing? Thanks for being part of the community. So yeah, so of course, 100%, right? But before Adam received a wife or a helpmeet, he first had work. You're in your work. Before David got married, David had work. You know his occupation, don't you? Right? Before Yehoshua says, I can come back for my bride who I'm betrothed to, he has to complete his work. He has an assignment. Right? And when you look at even with Adam, his name means man. Adam, his work. I'm not even talking about your take home. I'm not talking about how much your net worth is. I'm talking about your work. See, watch this. Your work in the kingdom is what saves you. Not saves you, sorry. I'm using that too liberally, excuse me. Because somebody would be right if they were to say, you're not saved by your works. You're right. I'm not saying that. Okay, my bad. I said that the wrong way. Your work will be what saves you in this regard. Your work is the prism that you're looking through, right? The prism that I do everything through is my work. So when my wife showed up, right, the prism that I'm still looking, this is why for every man, when you come to him and you argue with him, sis, and you be telling him he ain't doing this and blah, blah, what's his first response usually going to be? Don't come to me talking about this, even if he dead wrong. What's he going to say? Don't come to me like that. Don't come to me talking about this and that, whatever. He starts saying, because I do this, and I do this, and I paid this. And you're saying, but that's not enough, and blah, blah. But for him, before you showed up, there's supposed to be, even if he's not doing everything he's supposed to do, granted, but there's something inside of him that says he's supposed to have a work. And if you deny the fact that he works, it's hard for him to hear you. I'm just giving you the game. You ain't gotta hear me on that. I'm just telling you what it is. Take that, put that in your back pocket. I promise you're gonna help. Right? Don't deny his work. Don't belittle his work, because he ain't gonna hear you. How you doing, brother Yachasad? You said a wife can't multiply, but you don't do. That's right, 0 times 0. Right? So you're supposed to find a husband, a kingdom man, a kingdom husband, and a kingdom father. Supposed to be qualified as all three. He's supposed to be in his work, and then through his occupation and through his assignments that come with that occupation, right? He sees the value of his helpmeet. Adam, name the animals. Adam, keep the garden. Adam, dress it. Adam, do that. Adam, do that. And then while naming the animals, he realizes all the other animals have something that helps them, and in the environment he's over, he needs somebody on the same level as him, and there's nobody who is on the same level to help him to multiply. He's also been given a command, and it's been spoken over his life before he was even created, that Adam would have what? That Adam would have the ability, that Adam would have the ability to function as what? That he would be able to function as somebody who was fruitful and multiplied, therefore could replenish, and that's what would cause him to what? Subdue. How you doing, rude boy? Thanks for being part of the community. All those things, being together as one, right? He can't multiply. He can't replenish. How can he truly subdue? He has fruit. Fruit has seed inside of it. He's got seed that can become, but how much can he become? How much can he grow? How much can he be like his father that's in heaven, right? If he himself cannot continue to grow and have a legacy, right? Said be in position while doing your work. There you go, right? So when he finally begins to be in, hear this, beloved. So he's finally getting to a place where he's in position. He's doing what he's supposed to do. That's awesome. That's great. So now when you see him, so now out of his work, he sees the necessity of help me as soon as he see, as soon, because Yah had already said, right? Yahweh Asad, la'ah, uh, or la'ah, uh, Adam Bad, right? Yeah, or la'ah tisata'ik Adam Bad. It is not righteous that Adam would be by himself. He would be alone. He would be all in one. Yah is all in one, yet while being all in one, he has what? He has a spiritual bride. His kingdom continues to move. He has a legacy. He has children. He has, right? He when we are alive, by the way, the earth, there's going to be a new earth. There's not going to be everybody going to live in heaven. Heaven will meet earth the same way it was supposed to in Genesis 28. That's always been the same. Genesis 28, Genesis chapter 2, Revelation, it's heaven meeting earth, right? So the same, in the same manner, husbands, right, love your wives, right? Oh, I'm sorry. And wives, submit to your husbands as they submit unto Yahweh. Submit to the mission. That's a mansion. Submission. This is the context. So as we are in our work, we see the necessity, right? By being in our work, we will see the necessity of a helpmeet that helps us to make sure we're doing what we're supposed to. And watch this, because she will help us in our endeavor and multiply what we do, we will protect her. And if you don't believe this, I've used this before. If you don't believe this, for real, look at how a husband treats his car. Look at how a man treats his car. You give him a car, right? He ain't gonna just let it whatever. Even if he live inside of it, he gotta do something to make sure that that car looks presentable in some way, shape, or form. I don't care when I had a little, when it was 2004, 2005, and I had a 2003, 2004, 2005, somewhere in there, and I had a '96 Dodge Neon with the paint coming off the top and everything, but it was clean. And I'm 6'5.5", trying to finesse my way in there, seat all the way back. I still can't fit in there. Got my legs up to the side, but I took care of it because it got me from point A to point B. It multiplied. This is how men think. I'm telling you what it is. This is how we think. This is how we operate, right? If it takes care of us, if it helps us in any way, shape, or form, we will give the best we can, even if it be an inanimate object, because it helps us with our work. You see that? You said you're a Levite. How do you consider a wife? Well, we can come to that in a second, but yeah, we'll come back to that in a little bit because I know I got a couple other questions. But yeah, that's a great question to go in the same vein, right? So I hope you guys catch those things we're speaking on with that particular stuff, right? But all those things have to come together as one. It makes it difficult because we don't set these boundaries from the beginning, and the boundaries are not just to keep everybody else where we want them. The boundaries are also to keep us in place, because if you don't live by your boundaries, then nobody else should, right? If you are bringing in things to a relationship and you want them to be accepted, you got to make sure you find a way to accept other things. Now, they got to be righteous. If you're bringing unrighteous things into the relationship and saying, yeah, I'll work on them, then fine. And the other person should be able to bring things in the relationship and they'll work on them too. That's the way it works. I'm still working on my anger, okay. But then they still going to be working on theirs. Hopefully somebody doesn't keep going tit for tat, and hopefully somebody comes up and becomes the adult in the relationship and says, hey, all right, I'm going to be righteous no matter what. But it is what it is. If you ain't got your stuff together, then I can't be looking at them and saying, why ain't they stuff together? Salam. So obviously there's a bunch of different ways we can continue to go with that. In that part of it, I think if the person still needs to talk about it, we won't make it a one size fits all. Right? That's not a one size fits all thing. There's some things that probably we'd have to talk about online or offline. Oh, thank you, Auntie Mary. Yeah, we do have a class part of SOC University. There's a class on marriage. Matter of fact, I probably have to do a couple sessions in the makeup stuff that we have going on. Who knows how long I'm gonna spend making up to you guys, because I've just been dealing with some things. But yeah, we used to have marital sessions. That just fell by the wayside. At some point, we need to bring that back, run that back. We were doing like kind of once a month, but 2 days in a row. one would be live, and then we would have a Zoom session, and then that kind of fell apart. To be honest, well, anyways, I'll leave that alone. So, but yeah. So that's first question. I'm sorry. Thank you for being patient, Auntie Marion. Think of the next question. Something. Oh, okay. So this is how. So when somebody's saying Passover's coming up, and we have a couple different places that persons are trying to come together and do Passover in big groups, which we're thankful and grateful for. Really, we have three places kind of happening already, so we're thankful and grateful to the Most High that persons we're picking up steam. All praises, right? Okay. So, and it looks like we're probably going to be doing Passover packages. I don't want to speak for Elder Alma too much because I know it was a maybe. I think the price had raised. I forget what the price was, 100 and something, especially if you're doing a big, huge group. We're going to give you all the stuff in advance as far as the list, what you can get if you just want to get the stuff by yourself. But if you're somebody where, maybe you're busy or you just prefer somebody to give it to you, you don't want to make mistakes, we do offer stuff because of these tariffs and stuff too. Everything has gone up. It's crazy how stuff affects the, society and things like that. But anyways, yeah, I know we got to get back to it for real, for real. We really do. And yeah, I'm a, if, yeah. You know what? Well, okay. I was already vulnerable yesterday. It is what it is. There are going to be some of you that, I thank some of you already. Feel free not only to check in on me, but hold me accountable. I be saying this all the time. I'm a human being too. If I say we're going to do something or this and that, if there's something you like or something we haven't been doing, feel free and even remind me. And look, some of y'all man, I'm a pastor, but some of y'all and I don't mean this in a bad way. Some of you my elders, you're my big brothers, you're my big sisters, right? Some of you are like motherly figures to me, even in a way, right? We've talked about that before, or aunties, uncles to me, something like that. Like, if I say I'm gonna do something and I don't do it, like hold me accountable, be on me, like get on me to a point. That's love, right? Now I know because I'm going through a lot of things and y'all are trying to cause anxiety and stuff like that in my life, and I appreciate it. But I'm just saying it's okay too if y'all be like, hey man, what happened to da da? Or what happened with blah blah? Or when's the like I be sitting there myself looking in the mirror. I got like 5, 6 books that are waiting for like the last two, 3 chapters. I'm gonna be finished, and I'm like letting all this other stuff happen, and I've been like sitting up there and then you start feeling some kind of way, and you start feeling bad or whatever. You ain't got to necessarily make a brother feel bad, but at the same time, hold a brother accountable. Yo, get your stuff together. Right? Where's the stuff? Hey, I've been waiting on this. Matter of fact, put pressure on me. Hey, I sent you this much. I'm expecting da. Maybe not. That's I'm don't play with your money like that. But you hopefully get the context right. Okay. All right. So yeah. So feel free. Hold me accountable and stuff. As we grow, obviously I'm busier and stuff like that. But it doesn't mean that I'm without being held accountable. I love y'all, right? And hopefully I love you too. I love I know y'all love me, and hopefully I love y'all too. All right. So next question as far as Passover. So this is Passover. I'm gonna do like this because Passover, and we're gonna obviously the closer we get to Passover, there'll be more teachings. So there are persons who'll be like, "Hey, who can come to Passover?" Right? And the Bible talks about this very candidly, not only in Leviticus 23 but in other places as well. So the thing we want to make sure if we're inviting anybody to Passover is that we must comprehend, like we say all the time, this walk that we do is not for everybody, right? And so when I'm talking about Passover, obviously you need to be involved in the kingdom in some way, shape, or form. Now, as far as a stranger, and I know the question was asked about circumcision, but I'm gonna outline this all together, right? As far as the stranger is concerned, like the royalty series, yeah, we're supposed to do that starting tomorrow. So as far as the strange, how you doing, brother Coleman? And thank you, baby stuff. Appreciate you. As far as the stranger, which is a foreigner, right? And a foreigner is to a nation. So stranger don't mean white. Nationality ain't that doesn't mean skin color. All right. Nationality doesn't mean ethnicity. All right. It can involve it to a certain degree, but it doesn't mean that. All right. And how you doing? Is it Charlene? Hopefully I'm saying that right, Charlene. Charlene Armstrong. So, but if we're talking about that, a stranger is not allowed to be in Passover. Now, this is what we mean by stranger. Stranger does not mean necessarily they're uncircumcised. In context, it can mean uncircumcised because uncircumcised is talking about not following the law. Somebody who hasn't been in the kingdom long enough, may not even for medical reasons, whatever, may decide that they never want to be circumcised because they weren't circumcised when they were young. That can actually be allowed, believe it or not, right? Although the goal should be to hopefully have everybody circumcised, but that doesn't, that's a personal choice. Believe it or not, that's between them and the Most High, right? Spiritually speaking, circumcision having is even deeper, right? Because whatever's physical also has a spiritual side. When we talk about circumcision, especially circumcision of the heart, which I must say, even though we would hope nobody would try to do this, but we're talking about technically, right? Please do not. You'd be surprised what you have to tell persons nowadays, or what person try to sue you for and stuff. So I have to say this out loud. I am not telling anybody to go and get a physical circumcision of the heart, right? The Bible is not either. It's a spiritual thought process, right? It's an allegory, if you will. It's not really, but hopefully you get it that way. It's a symbolization, okay, parabolic, right? But circumcision of the heart is talking about in your heart. In the word Hebrew, in the original Hebrew is lab. In the modern Hebrew, you call it lev, but the Sephardic pronunciation lab is talking about your passion. The word heart also doubles for the word passion, just like the word soul also doubles for the word kidneys. Right? A lot of persons don't know that. Right? So there's a physical side and a spiritual side to everything. Right? Always be aware of that. That being said, when we're talking about a stranger we're talking about as a foreigner. A foreigner is somebody who's a stranger and they're not accepting the ways of Yah. Now, if somebody's willing to accept the ways of Yah, if somebody's willing to say, okay, I'm not just coming only to respect it, but hey, everything that I do because of Christ being, the head. We're doing some remembrance of Him. We recognize what's happening with Passover. We recognize what happened with being delivered. We know that Passover is something that still was supposed to happen even after Christ died, because Christ told us to do it Himself. We know that the holy days continued in the so-called New Testament, even after the Old Testament is done with, et cetera, et cetera. How you doing, Sister Donna? And thank y'all for the love. And we're gonna figure out how to, even if we don't do the full meeting, whatever, Elder Alma and I, we want to make sure that we see you before we roll out on the road. And anybody in the DMV, by the way, I don't know if it's gonna be a Saturday thing or whatever, but just at this point, I just say this: if you're in the DMV, you want to meet up, contact with us, because we're gonna make sure we do something, even if it's giving some hugs out, sitting down for a few minutes or whatever. And before we roll out, we want to make sure that we say shalom to everybody. And everybody in the Carolinas, we still be coming through, so hopefully y'all be ready as well, right? But anyways, I'm sorry. Sorry, excuse me. Y'all family, so we're talking like family, excuse me. So back to the question, sorry. So if somebody's a stranger or foreigner, we're asking, okay, well, do you recognize who Christ is? Do you recognize what this Passover is? Do you recognize that it's, that there's no leaven, to be had here? We're not going to be adding no extra stuff. This is not for us eating to be full, all these different things or whatever. If they recognize those things, then yes, sure, they can go ahead. But if they're a foreigner, if they're a stranger, stranger meaning they're not of the nation, if they have decided they don't want to be part of what we do, right, then that's wrong. Now, they don't have to be what we call it now, immersion, baptism, same words, by the way, right? But immersion, baptism, all the, we're trying to call it something different so that we don't sound like we're going to church or whatever. But if you're talking about immersion or baptism or any of these things or whatever, all you're really talking about is all we're really talking about is making sure that they're in the kingdom and they have kingdom in the heart, right? The passion, that's the first thing, right? Do you recognize who Christ is, right? Do you recognize what's going on, right? Now, if somebody decides, well, you know what, I don't want to be there, but I like to observe, they can observe even, but they can't be served, because to be served in that place, you're literally being served. Like, think about what Passover was about, even in its origin, right? We're putting blood on the doorpost. We're going inside the house, right? And Christ now, of course, is the sacrificial lamb. So really, it's Him being over the doorpost of the family, right? Because house in the word Hebrew, the word house in Hebrew doubles for the word family, right? So the blood was put over the doorpost, over the house, but now we would think of the blood covering the family, right? So if you're part of the family and you're going to eat, you're eating or drinking because you're ready to do what Yahashua tells us to do later on in Scripture, or what Yahweh told us to do initially, which is to be ready, as Moses told us to leave once whatever's going to happen that night. We don't know exactly. We have been told that the death angel's coming, but we don't know exactly how everything's going to go down. We were told, even before we see everything go down, to have the faith, right, to put the works together, to put the sacrifice to make the sacrifice or use the sacrifice to cover us, and we ate with no leaven, leaven representing sin. We had no leaven that night. We ate bitter herbs. Remember, even in Revelation, we talked about bitter herbs, bitter being what cleanses, clean meaning lawful, legal, what makes things legal, cleanses, right? And having even wine even representing like opulence, wealth. Like we're in the kingdom, we're going to lead with riches, all these different things coming together, right? Did I skip anything? I talked about the lamb, right? The lamb, the sacrifice, unleavened bread, the wine. I'm forgetting. Oh, and the bitter herbs. Yeah, we talked about everything. So we do all these things and then we leave. So if right, so if somebody is coming there and just wants to observe, right, then they can even observe. I mean, somebody would fight against me with that, and I could even see a biblical reference here or there that I would say, hey, I can see why you would say they can't do that. As far as if you're talking about what I'm saying, so let me take the heat for it with the spirit. As far as if you're asking me how we get down, we're trying to make sure we do what the Bible says, of course, but I'm just saying if anybody needs to take, it's on me, right? So I would tell you, if somebody wants to observe and they're not all the way there, sure, but they can't be served, because the second they would be served, right? Now, if they want to eat something else and be some like, but they shouldn't be served the stuff of the Passover, because if they get served those Passover things, then what we're saying is that we're ready to do those things on that particular day. And the Bible says if we do this, if somebody eats or drinks just to get full, or somebody's just there just because, they eat or drink damnation unto themselves, right? So we don't want to have somebody eat or drink damnation to themselves. The Bible also tells us that if we don't do these things properly, right, or if we don't do these things, we're utterly cut off. So it's very important that we do these things properly, right, and that we have the table prepared and all these things properly and everything. But yeah, they don't have to be circumcised physically. They don't, and even if it's obviously something we would hope down the road it would change. Even if they're still using Jesus, saying this, blah blah, okay, hey, we get that. But as far as if you're actually talking, they don't. And also what's another question about? Do they have to be baptized? That's another question. Yeah, immersion. Yeah, they don't have to be baptized to be able to receive it as well, right? Especially if they're just learning about it and they don't have an opportunity to be baptized beforehand. Um, prayerfully they'll be baptized down the road. But the main thing is to make sure that they understand what it's about, and they understand it's about kingdom, and they understand, yeah, like we're doing this because of this. If they recognize when we show up, we're doing it because of this. And if you're saying you're going to be part of the nation, if you're saying that's your goal, if you're saying you want blah blah, then sure, come on in. If you have full rights to everything, it's a commonwealth. Whatever we have, such as we have, we give unto thee. If we even did a little bit of that, I think, at Feast of Tabernacles, where there's some persons who were asking about this and that and blah blah, and they wanted to partake in some of the stuff that we had and everything. Sure, come on. You come on in and listen and learn. They didn't want to sit around for some of the stuff, but they came around, got some stuff, and there's a seed planted, and who knows, maybe we see them this year coming up, right? And maybe we got their spot on the lot this year, so they won't be able to be in the same place. But maybe we run up on them again, and they want to sit down, and they had their children playing with our children and stuff. Maybe this time it materializes into something else. There was a few times that happened, right? But we have to recognize and realize that that this is something that's talking about a specific thing, as far as what does that mean, what does the kingdom of heaven mean, what does the nation mean, et cetera, et cetera. Right, Bavakasha. Yeah. As long as those things are in place, they can come on in. If they're like, well, I don't really believe that. Okay, they can be there. But they just don't have to observe. They can't be given the stuff, and yes, that includes while we're eating. Like, yeah, they can be given something else to eat. I would eat. Now, this is between. Don't make your family. You do what you feel. I'm gonna just be honest. Where I am, and my family would even get upset at me for saying this or whatever. I would have them, even if they my family, even if they my friends, even if they were there. I'm be honest. I would have them sit at hey, cool. You don't believe, no problem. But we'll make sure we even have some food that's cooked for you, but it's not gonna be what we eating, and you can go ahead and eat it over there at that table. Some people might be like, that's way too much. I'm just being honest. It's for me, I would make a separation. Once again, that's not biblical. That's me. Okay, I'm just being honest, right? Like, so what I'm saying that to say, don't feel bad because you're making a distinction, right? Like, this is a kingdom distinction. If there look, and I'm not saying, obviously I'm not putting them on this level, okay? But just put it like this: if they're a devil worshiper, and somebody a devil worshiper was coming in there, right, trying to do all types of weird stuff, and y'all was getting ready to and y'all were getting ready to watch Passion of the Christ, and then have Easter celebration or something like that the next Sunday, or the Sunday, or you watch Passion of the Christ on Saturday, and then you had Easter celebration, and this person came in was wilding out and stuff like that, and then they try to come back through on Sunday, would you let them in? No, you make a distinction. You be like, no, you. Matter of fact, you might even be able to come, but you can't be around here. You can't be up front. You're gonna be, especially if you come in yelling and fussing and doing all types of weird stuff or whatever. If you give your heart at the end of the service, you can come up, right? Y'all make a distinction. If there's somebody, look, I'm not saying we got to go back to the old school ways. Hopefully we don't, because we shouldn't have anybody that's not modest anyway. But shoot, y'all know old school church. You be sitting up front and mess around, and pastor trying to preach and teach, and she have on a skirt that was considered to be too high, and mama in the church come and she do what? In front of everybody. In front of everybody. In front of everybody. Come up. Let me put the let me put the blanket right on you. Bam. In front of everybody. Not because we try to be mean, but because this is we gotta let it be known. And person be like, that's embarrassing and da. Okay, well, maybe I don't know what's better if we had maybe asked, if she come to him and say, hey, can you come up with me? And then she has to go to the back, and then she come back and put the blanket on herself. But it was a thing that was known. There's certain things and principles that we separate. It's not because we mean. Like if somebody come over to my house and they start cursing and stuff like that in front of my son, hey, we don't curse like that in front of him. You said you used to be a blanket. You used to sit there just for that, right? Amen. They used to have, they used to be people that just had blankets. They used to be, matter of fact, mamas in the church and deaconess in the church, they used to all have blankets. Or I don't know if you call them blankets. Forgive me, sisters. I don't know whatever you call them, right? But they used to have a little blanket type thing that would be on there, and they would sit with them. And if somebody came in and was doing something, even if they were in the front, if they were in the front, that's when it became a big problem. But even if they were in the front, I recall going places and it wouldn't even be in the front. Oh well, like they get up, put it on you, right? Wasn't trying to be whatever. And sometimes they be nice. And by the way, I think it's okay to be nice, of course, right? Sometimes they be nice and they be like, hey, I'm not trying to embarrass you. Black blanket, okay. I'm not trying to embarrass you. I'm not trying to blah blah. I just want you to know. I just want you to know, that over here we try to make sure that you wear blah blah. And they put it on you nice, but they still gonna put it on you. Right, brothers, if they were sagging their pants at the church, somebody's gonna come to you. Hey, bro, pull it up. Sometimes somebody come behind you and pull it up for what? Yeah. And here we don't do that. Not because we're mean. Okay, a prayer cloth. Okay, amen. Prayer cloth. Yeah, some people did call it that. Yeah, so if you do other food for them to eat, if you go that route, right? Okay, cool. Have other food for them to eat, but just make sure that they understand, like anybody who's going to partake in the actual Passover, we're doing these things because of this. Right. So, like I said, persons would argue with me against that, and that's why I say, just in case there'd be an argument for me personally, I would just make it. And really, I wouldn't even worry about the argument. But for me personally, I do it. Like I'm like, if you're gonna do that, if you're gonna do whatever, if you're against it, if you're just observing whatever, hey, that's cool. But this is for those. This table here is specifically for those who worship the Most High. That's what this is. If not, you're eat or drink damnation to yourself, because you'll think that you can participate in something that's supposed to be covered for you, right? That's supposed to make sure that those who are the children of Israel will be protected before we are delivered from bondage. If you don't think that you need the Most High to help you to be delivered, then this table's not for you, right? That's right. We're royalty. Amen. You said drop the location and the time for what? For Passover? For Passover, you can join us on Zoom on April 1st at what time we say? I gotta double check. I didn't change the time so much. I think it's 7 p.m. is when we're gonna start, 7 p.m. New York time. Or the music's gonna start at 7 p.m., something like that. But 7 p.m. New York time, because I think we're gonna be on Central time where I am, and we always try to make sure that we're doing it 6 p.m. And by the way, no matter where you're doing it, even if you're a couple hours after that, by the end of it, you'll still be, at your 6 p.m. time or at your sundown time. Well, 6 p.m. time. West Coast sun won't be down yet, right? But we'll still be together. Amen. You said the first of the month, but you wake up to your what? Oh well, hopefully all is well. We're praying for you. I'm sorry that you had to go through that. with that. If that's the thing where you headed towards you, if you need financial assistance or anything like that, that you can ask us offline. We have our stuff at Linktree. Our Linktree is up, so you can go and do the Linktree and text one of the 202 numbers, and somebody will try and get to you and see if we can help. But other than that, praying for you. I'm sorry, that's tough. Right, but I know when you hit that question, it's first of the month. Wake up, wake up, wake up. Get up, get up, get up. I'm just being honest. We kind of. It seems like we kind of know what's headed next. Uh, let's see. Yeah, okay. So I think I answered that one. If I need to go further, Auntie Marion, let me know. I think I answered that one. What was the next one? The one where the person was being rude and everything and got blocked at the beginning. Oh, okay. So this is one. This is one where at the end of the day, it's a foolish argument for me. I don't even know why I really. Well, you know what? Just Q&A first of all. Secondly, let me humble myself a little bit. I feel like it's not a great question, but once again, it's something that probably just comes from the fact that persons don't know, the word that much, right? It's this thing where persons have been for a few months now coming on here. They're really the first time it really even became a thing was we were talking about protecting our women last year, and when we did, all these persons came on and started like coming on the channel and saying this, and eventually, letting it be known how they don't even think that Christ is the Messiah, and da da da. Because and ultimately, it started, on here. Now I know it's something bigger than just here, but it started on us doing these live sessions simply because we were protecting our sisters, right? When we were doing that evening session, we did it like 3 or 4 days during that week or something like that. Oh, okay. All right. Well, sorry. I hope you saw that message, Big Professor. Big Professor, you should hopefully be able to come on. Oh, okay. Your message was deleted by accident. Donna's learning her baby. Donna's learning her. She's learning how to come into the community. And if you listen, Donna, how you doing? Right. Um, yeah. So let's see. So there's this weird thing. You probably I don't know. Well, I would say you probably heard it by now. I'm not sure how many of you have heard this or not, but it's something that seems to have been given wings over some time. Oh wow, I didn't realize how late it is already. Hopefully we're gonna be able to let you guys make calls and do clapping. My fault. It's already 10 o'clock and we're not close to letting y'all know yet because we still got a couple things we got to upload first. So hopefully we'll get on. My apologies. We're on a little bit later than we normally are on Sundays, anyways, just because we have more time and then the rest of the day is for family day. But let's see. So there's this weird belief system that Christ is not. Matter of fact, I'm gonna be honest. Persons change this up a little bit, so I'm not even sure 100% which way to go with it. Either way, it's kind of. Either way, it's not kind of. It's fallible. Uh, Completely fallible. So the belief is that Christ is not the Messiah, right? Which is really interesting because so there's a lot of Hebrew Israelites. And by the way, this has always been a thing. This is why I say just like when you have to be careful when somebody tells about Christianity. Not all Christians believe the same thing. You talk about Muslims, Muslims. They're not all the same. Just because they say they're Muslims doesn't mean they all believe the same thing. If you go to Christianity, for example, like I've heard people preach this, they say, "Believe if you believe." In the Jesus that we believe in, then it's the same. So a Jehovah's Witness is a Christian. I'm like, Jehovah's Witnesses don't believe in the Trinity. So or they'll be like, well, the Mormon church, and we should be excited and work with them. I was like, Mormons think that if you are black, it's because that you didn't fight with Christ and that you fought, and you didn't fight with the devil, you were a coward. If you fought with the devil, you have nobody. That's where the fallen angels come from. And if you fought with Christ, you're white and delightsome. If you're anything in between, you're considered to be somebody who's, maybe you'll be able to live in the afterlife, but you'll only be a servant and a slave, right? Like like there's all these different persons who just say whatever. Oh well, I'm a Protestant. Well, if you're a Protestant, you're basically a Roman Catholic. You're a Roman Catholic, except your Pope changed. The Pope of the Roman Catholic Church is the King of England. That's it, right? Like persons don't know any better. So you have all these. This is why you still wear a lot of Roman Catholic stuff. If you're Orthodox Christian, Orthodox Christianity even affects some of the stuff that you guys think are Ethiopic, right, or from Ethiopia. Some of that stuff is is basically Roman Catholicism, or not Roman Catholicism. Sorry, it's Eastern Christianity, what you call Orthodox Christianity, when Rome was split into two. So some of it, not all of it, but some of it. So, there's this weird thing that happens. So I try to tell persons from the jump with a lot of this stuff that will be told, oh yeah, everybody believes and blah blah, and it's like, no, just like anybody else, just because somebody says they're an Israelite, or they say they're Hebrew Israelite, or they say they're this or that, a lot of them don't believe what you believe. Right? A lot of them don't stand for what you stand for. This is why you need to know the law greater than the scribes and the Pharisees. Just because somebody says they're more or mora, whatever, doesn't mean that they actually know what they're speaking on. Yeah, I have you coming up after that person. The Levite question. Yeah. So that's why I said I'll come to it. It's different, but I'll come to it later. But these are the but these are the things. I don't think he's being I think Brother Joe now kind of types like that no matter what, but I see what you're saying. Yeah. Let's see. And how you doing, Leo? And thank y'all for sharing. How you doing, Anthony? Thanks for the repost, everybody. Thank you for the love. How you doing, Janice? Thanks for being part of the community. If I miss you on any platform, charge to my head, not to my heart. I'm appreciative of everybody who's on with us. Thank you so much. All right. So let's see. Where am I going? Excuse me. Where am I going? Where was I going? Oh yeah. So with the whole thing, so this is what persons try to use. They try to say, really, it stems from this. They say that Christ, first of all, it starts with them saying that this argument that John the Baptist is Elijah. And persons don't like it when I say it's not. And what persons try to do is they say, no, he's Elijah. Now, first of all, Yehoshua made it a point to say that John the Baptist is not Elijah. Remember, they said, who do you think you would see? They told you, Christ told you who he was. Right? Christ told you who he was. But there's this belief system that persons have started to, develop, where Elijah is, the person, and that the Bible says this and that or whatever. And they use Malachi, right? Malachi chapter 4, verse 5 in particular, to talk about this. They don't really, and so they say, and we can go there real quick. Malachi chapter 4, verse 5, right? Just to make sure I'm reading it bar for bar, flow for flow. Malachi, that's G. But if we go to Malachi chapter 4, right? And really, it's not even called Malachi. It's actually called the burden of the word of Yehovah to Israel. Right? You'll find that title in Malachi chapter 1, verse 1. But if you go to Malachi chapter 4, verse 5, this is where this is what they said. They say, behold, I will send you Elijah the prophet before the coming of the great and dreadful day of Yehovah. I'm going to say it again. They say, behold, I will send you Elijah, the prophet, before the coming of the great and dreadful day, or the great and dreadful yom, the great and dreadful period of Yehovah. Now, this great and dreadful day, number one, already answers your question. Because number one, it's not saying that he's going to send it before the Messiah shows up. It says he's going to send it before the great and dreadful day. Right, but here's another thing that they don't tell you. So everybody see that? Anybody question that? Anybody come? Because I know that's something that has been popping up, and persons come in our live sessions quite often to tell you, oh, no, this is blah, blah. And no. First of all, let's deal with this. Elijah, right? Elijah is what? Elijah is not coming before Christ. All right? If anybody sees different, you let me know. Right? That's right. He would be one of the two witnesses. Right? Matter of fact, he would be one of the two olive trees. So you already know what time it is. Amen, Brother Thomas. Right? So you're already, not to be confused with big Brother Thomas. Brother Thomas, nonetheless. Both brethren. Right? So if we see this properly, if we know what's going on, and we give it its proper due, right? Then we actually can see this for what it is properly. What do I mean? So first of all, I want you to comprehend. You can't take Malachi chapter 4 out of context, especially Malachi chapter 4, verse 5. But you can't take it out of context. If we look at Malachi as a whole, once again, it's called the burden of the word of Yahweh to Israel. That's the name of the actual scroll. And why is it a burden? Well, from Malachi chapter 1, verse 1, we're told straight up that this is a burden, right, to give because the children of Israel don't really believe that the Most High loves them and doesn't believe that they should be separated from Esau. And they take every opportunity to come against Yahweh to go ahead and be connected to Esau. That's what this is actually about. That's what this is actually about. How you doing, Minister Castleberry? This is actually about, once again, this is a burden to try and get Israel to separate and to become what Yahweh wants them to be. That's the entirety. It talks about that it talks about the distinction in Malachi 1, Malachi chapter 2. It starts talking about the Levites and how they're out of pocket, and therefore the things that Levites thought were barak to them will now become a curse to them. The things they thought were just now become achival, and the things they thought were righteous will become evil, right? Then they go from there to right. So it's a whole different conversation, right? Excuse me, 1 second. I'm gonna be repetitive again, but I just want to, yeah. So my apologies, like I was saying, but yeah. So we have a tough time talking about this because once again, Malachi chapter 1 is actually telling us about what happened with the Malachi chapter 1 is talking about being separate from Esau. Malachi chapter 2 says the priests and the leaders are out of order. No, I'm not a Christian. Malachi chapter 3 then goes to a place of verses 1 and 2 to where we are actually making a distinction where it starts talking about the Messiah coming, right? And then Malachi 3 starts going into having tithes in the storehouse so that there will be provision in the house of Yah. And if we do not do this and we do not give the way we're supposed to, then yes, it is possible to rob the Most High Yah. Then Malachi chapter 4 does not discuss just Elijah, but it talks about a curse. That if we're not careful, the hearts of the children must return to the hearts of the sources of the word for us, which is our fathers, and the hearts of our fathers must return to the hearts of the children, unless our land be smitten with a curse. And how do we make sure that we get this back in order? It mentions Moses and Elijah together, right? It mentions Moses and Elijah together, the two olive trees that are mentioned earlier in the so-called Old Testament, and that's mentioned in the so-called New Testament, especially in Revelation as well, right? Where there'll be two olive trees, the same ones who show up with Christ in the Transfiguration, right? And for some reason we only talk about Elijah. And how you doing, Brother Dennis? And how you doing, Momo? We only talk about how you doing, Jay. We only talk about Elijah for some reason, forgetting that this is not just about Elijah. It's not. Right? This is talking about Elijah and, right? This is talking about Elijah and Moses. Moses representing the law, right? And Elijah, right, so Moses, whose body was not taken by the devil, right, but did not get into the promised land. Elijah, who was a prophet, right, who felt like he was by himself, ultimately trained up another generation and then ends up being translated, right? So it's very important that we catch that. So Elijah is not supposed to be just taken out here by himself. Elijah, when he shows up at the Transfiguration, is not just to be looked at by himself. Am right? But we had this weird thing that's happened where persons have been taking that out of context. And it shows me that they're not really into their scripture the way that they assume. If you're into your scripture the way that you should be, you would recognize that the two olive trees, Moses and Elijah, they go together. When persons even asked Christ, or remember, they even Christ asked, who do you guys think, or you guys might have thought John the Baptist was whatever, but John the Baptist wasn't, who whatever. He was the greatest amongst all women, right? And then you'll even see that others think that he is Elijah. But if that's the case too, then you have to also be honest about the fact, and don't forget that there are those that thought that Christ was Elijah as well. Yeah, it wasn't just a John the Baptist thing. Remember, he asked, who do men say that I am? And they listed off a bunch of things, including, some say you're Elijah returned. Then he said, well, who do you say that I am? And he said, I'm Messiah. So this thing of saying that Elijah is somehow John the Baptist doesn't hold water. And so there's all these different things that come out of this belief now. There's all these different persons who come on and tell you this and that, or say, like attack me personally. Like that's what the person was doing earlier. If you missed it, or if you were on earlier on YouTube, that's what that person was trying to do. He's a perpetrator. He's a whatever, whatever he called him. And he said the reason was because I don't even know that John denied and this and that or whatever. But it all comes from really that same place. Speaking on Elijah, right, and saying that basically Elijah was, that basically they had this belief that Elijah was actually John the Baptist, and then there's a belief system that Christ didn't follow, what he was supposed to, and now it's become this weird dynamic. But Elijah is not come back outside transfiguration, and even when it talks about him and Moses coming back, it's not talking about them physically coming back. It's talking about the law, Moses coming back, and it's talking about what's established in the priesthood and the fire raining down, which we see in Revelation as well with the transfiguration. The fire has already came down with the sound of the trumpet and all those things, right? So it's talking about something completely different. Somehow, some way over time, that has become this belief in Elijah. Or that Elijah, is John the Baptist, and that Christ is coming. Now, even that, persons have taken, of course, because they don't like Paul. Paul somehow has gotten strays now, and this again, Paul be getting all the strays. But it's a very interesting dynamic and a very interesting conversation that's been popping up over and over again. So, just wanted to kind of touch on that, and speak on that real quick. Um, since the person put it there, but it is something that persons have been saying for a while. So you'll probably hear that from time to time, somebody making it a point to tell you once again that Elijah is John the Baptist and vice versa. And the answer to that is no. And usually, if you hear anybody saying that, just stick around long enough, listen to them long enough, study their stuff if you feel like you need to. You'll eventually see, oh, they're usually persons that don't even believe that Christ is the Messiah. They definitely don't believe that the Father and Christ are one. They definitely don't believe in the Trinity. It usually comes from that type of situation. They're usually persons that don't believe in the so-called New Testament. I don't believe that the New Testament should be even called the New Testament, or it should be put out by its own, on its own. But it is what it is, right? It is what it is. So, but yeah, so I told the person, that was on, even though, as led by Holy Spirit, we would answer it. It's not even that difficult to answer. Now, what we should pay attention to is that the hearts of the children must return to the fathers. The hearts of the fathers must return to the children. Elijah was very big on making sure. Matter of fact, Elijah is somebody who's there when you talk about baptism. He's somebody who told somebody to get baptized in the so-called Old Testament, right? Elijah and Moses are really taking us back to certain things and principles that we have lost, holy days we have lost, law that we've decided we don't need to be under, right? And they stood with Christ at the transfiguration, showing us that what they do is what Christ was okay with doing, and therefore you can look both ways, that Christ basically shows that what they did was all right, and them being there shows that what Christ did is all right. The three working together as one in a certain sense. Obviously not the Trinity like we think of it with the Most High, but a Trinity in its own way, right there, the transfiguration. So anybody trying to tell you Elijah is John the Baptist, I know there's other, and forgive me, there's other verses that they use. There's so many different things that pop up. It's difficult to keep up with. There's other verses that they would use. I think one is in Matthew somewhere, like Matthew chapter 2, chapter 3, somewhere in there. Maybe Matthew chapter 4. Um, they don't make sense to me. I just can't recall what the verse is. Even if you look at like John chapter 1, it tells us that John the Baptist is the light that shows up before Christ. So they'll say, see, it says that Elijah was going to return, and some persons thought that John the Baptist was Elijah. Yeah, it tells us that some persons thought that John the Baptist was Elijah. It doesn't mean they were correct. But anyways, uh, so I'll leave that there. Now the next one, I apologize. What was that? Oh, I hope we didn't delete the question. There was one by. Okay, so in your case, you are a Levite. In the future, how should you choose your wife, considering that being in the assembly is your job? In your case, your job is to serve Elohim. How do you make sure your wife understands? Well, same thing, really. That we were talking about before. It's slightly different. But same thing, you're in your work. So in your work will show you the value of a helpmeet, right? And will show you what a helpmeet is. While you're in your work, if you find a helpmeet, for he who finds a wife, so if you find Ashach or Isha, and you find her in your work, then you study her, right? You study her to see if she is in fact a wife, and not only a wife, but then if she's, you pray about it to see if she is in fact to be your wife, and then at some point you would talk to her and have a conversation with her to see about you two becoming one, and this is the reason why, et cetera, and giving her, really the way culturally it's supposed to happen is you kind of give her your resume. You kind of let her know this is what I do, this is where I'm headed. Like I talked about with my Isha, excuse me, with my Aisha, with my Isha, um, with Elder Alma, from the beginning. Hey, this is what I do. Like I'm going to be a pastor, and I even, like I said, I even admitted to her. I don't even know what that means because I know it's not going to look like what the typical church pastor thing is, but this is who I am. This is what I'm going to be doing. This is what I believe. I told her about my. I don't want to call it baggage, but y'all, you get. Hopefully, you get what I mean. Because of just the way society looks at it. I said like, hey, I have children. you know, um, I do this, I do blah blah. I got whatever. Like I've actually dealt with prison stuff before, et cetera, et cetera. There's some stuff, to be honest, I didn't even go deep enough in that I should have to let her know certain things. To be honest, right? I was afraid. Even I didn't put everything out there that I probably could, but I put quite a bit out there from the beginning and let it be known, like, hey, I'm not really getting into this because I'm trying to date or this and that. I'm trying to be a husband and have be a husband of one wife. And she was on the journey to be a wife, and she had decided that she needed to be a wife and stop being in the dating pool as well, and all this other. And so we had conversation. We were honest from the jump. We came together, and we came together under righteous pretense, not under false pretense, but under righteous pretense. So basically, it was understood from the beginning. But also, too, once again, she is my wife. Like she's somebody who is into project management. Something that like completing me is something that I see, and I don't want it to sound cold or callous. How you doing, Ebonics? I don't want it to sound like it's cold or callous, um, but there's needs, and I need to provide her needs. She needs to provide my needs to become one, and we're both getting rid of certain things that are auxiliary or that are going to become even more so auxiliary for our relationship. But also too, yeah, like we have to take care of each other in certain things. So yeah, like making sure that those things are there, talking to the person, hey, what are the things that you're looking for? Like, for her, being able to sustain a certain type of lifestyle was necessary. And at the beginning, I couldn't even do a, a, a fraction of what was necessary, even financially, if I'm being honest. But she said, hey, if this is what you're supposed to do, right, and you're not, she said, like, I've seen you go through this stuff. I've seen you putting in, applications for this and that. I've seen you doing the side hustles. I see. She was like, I don't. That doesn't seem to be like what it's for you because you're really great at this pastoring thing. So she was like, hey, take your time out, but there is certain things that I need to see by a certain amount of time. That's honest dialogue, right? Um, there's certain things as far as like, hey, I need to be hugged like this. I need to be, kissed like this. I need to be talked to like this. I need those are certain things that are necessary, right? Like those things that we should be honest about our past, honest about past relationships, honest about, certain things I'm not gonna put out. But I'm just saying, like, honest about all those different things. Be honest about it at the same time, and then us coming together and saying, okay, this is a vow, right? Like this is a covenant. This is till death do us part, dedicated to this no matter what. Like there is no anybody comes first before this. There is no the babies will get blah blah. There is no okay. Well, my stepchildren, I'll make sure because they were here before. No, no, no. Like we become one, right? So it's just basically like an extension of the same thing, like from the beginning, and letting it be known and being willing to be a living sacrifice, holy and acceptable, which is our reasonable service, right? And being not conformed to the things of the world or even what we come in with baggage and stuff before, but being transformed by the renewal of our mind. And I know this is not your thing per se, partially blind. So yeah, so if you're partially blind and you're gonna need somebody to help you with some of that stuff, that's something that you make it a point to say. Also too, look at the places too spiritually. Because even though spiritually you could be enhanced in certain places because you're blind, right? Just like you can probably hear things different than you probably could before you had issues, or maybe if you've been dealing with that since your childhood, I'm not aware. But there also can be, once again, the things in the spirit and the things in the flesh. cautionary tales. If there's things we're partially blind within the flesh, might be partially blind here or there with certain things in the spirit. And we might need to go through a process of recognition and seeing what's going on. So we have to be careful about those things and everything. What was the next one? And I'm sorry if I'm missing any questions, comments, or concerns. I'm trying to find them best as I can. Thank you for being on, everybody. You said in a marriage bed between husband and wife. Oh, are those things permissible? Um, I had to be careful how I say this. I had to be very careful. I wasn't ready for it. I wasn't ready. I wasn't ready. Um, are toys permissible? Okay, the question's been asked. Okay. I have to make sure I say this respectfully too, for persons of all ages, including my wife. And I have to be very careful how I answer some of this stuff. We talked about this before. At some point, we're gonna try to figure out how to do a sex ed thing, but we got to hit everything. We can't miss the mark on that at all, or else it can be very crazy how we answer some of these things. But it's been asked, right? And it's been asked before. To be honest, I've been asked behind the scenes, usually with my wife present. Praise God, but I've been asked behind the scenes a couple times by persons, you know, about those things, about masturbation, about other things, right? But as far as so, I'm gonna be very quick on this. As far as can you use toys, or toys permissible, yada yada yada. That's a tough one. Um, if now we're talking about in the marriage, right? Which is what the question was asked. I want to make sure I'm very clear because not everybody can see the question. Because if we're talking about in a marriage, right? The marriage is between two persons in a place to where what they do in bedroom with each other is undefiled. Um, so obviously, if you're by yourself, including even if you've been divorced or whatever, you're trying to make sure that you're not going. It's not acceptable. Period. Just not. It's just not. Okay. Yeah, I know you said in the marriage. I'm making sure because not everybody can see what you said. So in the marriage, just making sure that everybody knows we're talking about in the marriage. Now, that being said, okay, if you and your spouse, I guess, have decided that y'all are into whatever, I would say be careful with some of that stuff as far as especially if you're I don't even know how to say this right. Like if you're because I also got to be careful we don't get taken down or somebody's not offended and strikes us later or something. If you're somebody who's into whatever you're into the bedroom, what you do between your spouse and you or between you and your spouse, right? Um, Obviously be careful because what happens with some persons, this is what I would say on that. I think I could probably leave it at what I just said. Here's the only thing that like Holy Spirit said you got to put this out there. So I'm just gonna say it. I hope this isn't offensive to talk about, but it is what it is. It's a true thing. It is this. All right. If you're somebody who, well, really, I'll put it like this: it's very rare. Persons say they do it. Science seems to kind of go against this, but it's very rare that somebody is using any kind of tool like that and not thinking about something or someone. If you're doing those things, therefore, you got to be careful, especially if your spouse is not around. Now, you said in the bedroom, so I'm assuming in the bed chambers, spouse and you are doing whatever, whatever. Okay. All right. That being said, you know, you have to think of, most persons have to think of someone, right? Or have to think of something, which means you attach it to someone in some way, shape, or form to be able to get to that place, right? And also, to also be fair, if you're using it by yourself, right? Because there's not just the, if we're talking about toys, there's not just the female side of things, right? But there's also men using, what do they call that stuff? Pocket stuff and flesh stuff and all that stuff, right? If you're using it to get off, right, and your seed is hitting the ground, and vice versa, women shouldn't be doing it either, then you're still doing something that's not righteous. So if you're saying you're doing this with your spouse in your bedroom to enhance whatever, I guess that would be all right. I kind of feel like I can't be respectful of my position and even somebody others who are listening, and including my wife, even without if I go too much deeper and more in depth than that. But I would just be careful, especially about just being honest, adult about the masturbation side of things on that, because it gets to a place to where that can be something that opens doors to certain things. Okay. That being said, The bedroom is undefiled. If you're doing something with your spouse in the bedroom, that ain't none of our business. As long as there's obviously certain things that go too far and whatever. But whatever person's, I don't even want to. I don't even want to shame nobody. Whatever gets you where you need to got to. Hopefully, that's a journey between you and your spouse. And I don't really know. I don't really know what else to say about it. The bedroom is undefiled. If it's between you and your spouse, it is what it is. Now, if it's you by yourself, that's different. And if it's you thinking about somebody else while you're by yourself, that's different. I know some persons go, well, I think about my spouse when I'm doing blah blah, or my spouse might be gone and I want to do blah blah whatever. Bring something with me on the trip. I mean, I think that maybe if it's at that level. Now, I'm not saying that's what you're asking, but since we just bringing it out, if it's that level, I think there might be some self control stuff going on, so to speak. But the bedroom's undefiled. It is what it is, right? So, thank you for the question. I can't really go too much more in depth into that without hitting certain things that, especially, I probably would want to make sure Elder Anna was on, or that I knew that she approved of me talking about, because some things are not for me to just go into without her being here too. That's why I said I'll be careful about some of that stuff. So thank you for the question, though. Thank you for the question. I appreciate it. I just have to be I had to be delicate with the way I answered that one, in particular. All right. Um, I feel like there's something else that I missed, but I see your question. I'll try and go into that one next. Um, what is the take on intimacy in the bedroom? Okay, so I'm behind because I was supposed to do something on this a long time ago. Somebody asked me about this, and actually a couple persons have asked me about this. But this one's not even that difficult for me. There's nothing biblically that says that you can't be one with your spouse on Shabbat. Like, I haven't seen, like, if persons are saying you shouldn't be doing extra work, but like, we kind of take this stuff out of control. Like, a person like, I don't send the email out. I mean, I guess if you're saying you want to send an email out for your job, but if you're off, you're off, right? So, but a person be like, we don't do, but even in the Bible, like, person be like, you can't travel at all. Well, it doesn't even say that in the Bible. It says that they had to have a Shabbat day's journey and then a regular day's journey. If you know what that is, a regular day's journey, some person could march or walk somewhere from 15 to 20 miles in a day, right? So it probably even more so because marching was like 15 to 20 miles. So some persons could even go further than that. I've walked around Washington D.C. before, and still had parts of the day left to be able to do things. So like it's not as difficult as what you know might think. Like they have a Sabbath day journey. But as far as being one with your spouse, I've never. And if somebody can help me, I'm not even being facetious. If somebody can help me with a scripture that says that makes it like that, but I think that's just one of those things that got kind of we went like way on the other side of things. How you doing, Papa? I think it's one of those things we went like way on the other side of things. You know, so our goal is to you know you. I mean, look. This is why I said the sex ed thing is going to have to come up at some point. I'm just trying my best to make sure it's formulated in a manner to where it's very respectful, that everybody can be there. That my wife has to approve of certain things. They're going to be talked about and stuff like that as well. And obviously, we probably would do it to where no children would be able to have access to it, even though children at some point need to learn stuff too. So we probably have to do some development for them too. So that's something that's in my heart to do, because there's a lot of stuff we can talk about. But this is one that I think is kind of overblown. I cannot say that I've seen a scripture about it. If somebody has a scripture for me, I'm not going to be one of these persons. If you find the scripture, I'll pay you. Not on this one. I'm not 100% sure that that's an accurate thing for me to say. There is no scripture that says that you cannot have sex on Sabbath, but I can't recall one. I can't dial one up. I've never been able to look one up and Google one, etc. Right? I've seen some scriptures that persons try to use, but they usually have nothing to do with sexual activity. So I've never seen one. Obviously I'm not putting all my business out with my wife and I. But I'm gonna tell you right now, if it's time, it is Sabbath. I'm not missing no appointment. It is what it is. Can I say it like that? Is that okay? If it's time, it is the Sabbath. I'm not missing my appointment. I'm gonna just put it like that. If that upsets or frustrates some, or you don't like it, then I would say that. I'm just it is what it is. I've never seen it. I've been asked about it several times. I've tried to do research on it. I can't really find enough to even, just to be honest, I can't find enough to even say, well, this is where person get it from. It seems like it's something that's just kind of like we've stacked this upon this, tradition upon tradition upon tradition. They're not necessarily lawful. And now if you can't do this and you can't get this and you can't operate in this and you can't ever travel and you can't blah blah. It's like, no, that's yeah. There's just certain things that's not that. I can't. And by the way, it could be deep, and I just don't know where to dig. I just can't find the location to dig in. It seems like that's pretty much something that somebody made up somewhere along the way. Yeah. So the bedroom is undefiled. That's one place, right? If you're doing things righteously and you with your spouse, whatever, the bedroom is undefiled. Yeah, I know you asked me a while ago. You asked me about that and something else. That's what I was saying. I was supposed to get something together, and I never forgot about it. It's been getting life's been whooping my tail a little bit, but I got to change the prism I look through so I can get back on time with a lot of this stuff. But yeah, so there's a lot of different things that persons have added, to the word over time and things of that nature. That's one of the ones that seems like it was added. I've never seen anything that goes into that. Right. You said Matthew chapter 12 in a way. Let's look. Let's see. Could it be compared to Matthew 12? Now, Matthew 13, I know off the top of my head. Matthew 12. Because Matthew 13 has been talking about the kingdom of heaven is like, kingdom of heaven is like. Matthew 12. Oh, okay. Questions about what they should do on the Sabbath. Oh, okay. I mean, I guess we could see that as far as like because things were questioned about the Sabbath, even with like so I mean if we just read through, right? So I'll start at Matthew 12:1. I'm not gonna go through the whole thing, but Matthew chapter 12 verse 1 says at that time Yehoshua went on Yom Shabbat through the corn, and the disciples were hungry and began to pluck the ears of corn and to eat. But when the Pharisees saw, they said unto him, pay attention, behold, thy disciples do that which is not lawful to do upon Yom Shabbat. In other words, why are your disciples doing work? The work was picking corn to eat, right? This is going a little too far, right? But the work was putting corn together to eat. How you doing, Lamont? So he said, verse 3, but he said unto them, have ye not read what David did when he was hungry, and they that were with him? How he entered into the house of Elohim and did eat the showbread, which was not lawful for him to eat, neither for them which were with him, but only for the priest. Right? And by the way, that's real. David, you would say David broke the law, but he made sure his men needed to eat. Right? And I'm not sitting here saying we should be Sabbath breakers, right? But hear what I'm saying. Like, this is why Christ even says later on, like, which one of you, if your ox fell in the ditch, wouldn't make sure that you proceeded to get the ox out, because the ox represents money and wealth and value for your family, and it's going to help you with your land and all this stuff. Which one of you wouldn't make sure that you took care of your ox? Just like if somebody has an issue with their car in the street, right? If something happened with my car, matter of fact, something happened with my car on Friday, and as much as I don't like it, like I had to, it's been happening. Y'all know we've been dealing with car issues for a minute, and they and had to scrounge up whatever stuff I could put together, and was able to get the stuff fixed or whatever, and had to go was able to finally go pick it up on Friday, right? I'm not right. And Friday, by the way, Friday evening is the beginning of Shabbat. I'm not going to be like, oh, I'm gonna just let my car, be whatever, and I'm not going to put the stuff together to go make sure that my wife and my child can get to and from, right? And that we can't do what we're supposed to do in the kingdom just because it's no. Like my wife needs to be taken care of. You see what I'm saying, right? Like I get to the Shabbat and all this stuff, and I get to somebody would be, but my wife need to be taken care of. See, and so here they are, they eating corn because they're hungry. The corn is there for them to eat. The Most High gave the corn, but somebody be like, you can't eat corn because you're trying to pick it, because you're doing work. Right? This is when we get in trouble. Like you have a lot of services that happen, and people are saying, I need prayer, and you want right, and or I need help with something, and you'd be like, oh, well, we would help you, or somebody. This is one that really, forgive my language. This is one that really pisses me off. But we have persons who are dead, and because the church, the big, huge church that makes tens of millions a year, doesn't like the fact that they didn't tithe, once or twice while they were dying. And since they didn't tithe while they were dying, they said, we're not going to go ahead and bury you because you didn't give whatever. At some point, like, you got to figure out which one is, what to put where, right? See, so watch this. Or ye have not read in the law how that on Sabbath days the priests in the temple profane the Sabbath and are blameless. But I say unto you that in this place one greater than the temple, or is one greater than the temple, right? In this place one is greater than the temple. But if ye had known what this meaneth, I will have mercy and not sacrifice, ye would have condemned the guiltless. In other words, there are times when, yes, somebody's going to have to make a decision, and it's going to go against certain things, or it's going to go against a tradition, or sometimes even what we're calling a law is not even something that was written in law. It's just become traditional. But there are times where, yeah, your humanity should show up, and there are times that I'm going to do things where sometimes I'm not even sure if I should move on this or should do this. I'm praying about it. I'm seeking the Holy Spirit. Grand Rising, Hosea, how you doing? I'm doing all this stuff, but I might not know what to do. Or Hosea, however you pronounce it, please forgive me, right? And at the end of the day, I might make a move, and somebody might be like, well, the Bible said da. Well, then guess what? That's why there's this scripture that says what? That says that Yahweh will have mercy and not sacrifice. Ye would have, right, therefore you shouldn't be condemning the guiltless. There are times where somebody got to do what they got to do. Look, can I tell you something? Can I give an example? This is me kind of going different places, but hopefully this is making sense in oneness, right? Look, can I just keep it a buck with you? Look, there are times when persons will steal from grocery stores because they ain't got no money. If I ever caught that person stealing, or somebody were to steal, look, if SOC, right, we're working on trying to finally get the land together where this year we're hoping to yield some actual crop on like a pretty decent level, right? Right? And maybe even sell some of it this year as well, right? If somebody was starving when we go out to try and give some of this food somewhere, and somebody takes the food, if I found out about it, if I find out about it, I'm probably not trying to take them to the cops because they're hungry. Yes, I know the law said, and I know that this is for y'all's people. And how dare they take, yeah, and all that stuff is true. And I might even say that to them. But I'm going to draw the line in the sand. I'm going to tell those of you who are upset, let those who are without sin cast the first stone. And then guess what I'm going to say after that? I'm going to say, go away and sin no more and take your food with you. Right? Like there are times where like you got to have, right, kingdom sense take over what you think is common sense. Sometimes kingdom sense should be able to live it. Sometimes like being like, yo, yeah, somebody can do wrong, but guess what? We don't have to like carry this over them. Forgive them and operate and yes, they took or they did or whatever. Guess what? Now allow them to go ahead and do whatever. But that's not even to get like these brothers. They hungry. It happens to be the Sabbath day, and so now here's somebody who was given traditions of men more than what Yah said, where they were like, you can't even pick corn to make sure that you eat. We'd rather you be hungry and starving than make sure that you're fed. Right? And by the way, if anybody has a problem with that, you're in the wrong place. Because I'm just being honest with you. If somebody, I'm not saying that we're going to raise thieves, but hear what I'm saying. If it's, especially let one of these babies be around somewhere and they happen to take something or something like that, right? Because they're hungry, then I'm going to make sure they eat. I will teach them that, and I will try to operate and see what can we do as a community to make sure that they're not in that position again to where they have to do that. But if they're hungry, we're gonna make sure they eat. But watch this. Verse 9. And when he departed thence, he went into their synagogue. And behold, there was a man which had this is how crazy we get with it. Watch this. There was a man which had his hand withered. Right? And they asked him, saying, is it lawful to heal on Yom Shabbat? Is it lawful to heal? So think about that. Is it lawful to heal? Now, what's more important, that you keep the Sabbath or that you heal? Like, see, this is something that's also lawful that we don't want to talk about. When persons say, that, see, if anything, I'm be honest. We all remember the sister that called in on Thursday. I thought I was trying to even give her. I was trying to get her to this place. I'm glad that you brought this up because I didn't know it was Matthew 12. I can't remember where it was that we started having whatever was going on anyway. But I was trying to get her over here to Matthew 12 because this is a better argument. But I was going to show her even in this is lawful. For example, there's law of equity, there's common law, there's law of there's law of this, law of that, or whatever, right? One supersedes the other, something, right? But so they're all law. But sometimes you got to be like, okay, well, in the case of equity or the case of common law, which one are we dealing with? Well, the same thing, right? We're dealing with two laws that are coming together, right? There's a law that says that the Most High will heal you. There's a law that says keep the Sabbath. On the Sabbath day, they're saying, well, we shouldn't be in our occupation and work. But if somebody needs to be healed and it's the Sabbath day and I don't heal them, now which we have two laws that you think come into conflict. That's what persons would want you to believe. That if we say we follow the law, right? Because her argument was more so the argument that the religious leaders had, if you remember, right? And I'm not trying to come against her. And if this person is watching, I hope this finds you well. And I hope you're doing well. I'm just showing you guys, right? Remember, I told you, like, this is the thing. I was saying that we need to discuss more what she was saying because she wasn't 100% wrong on everything, but she wouldn't let us get to a certain place to have a better conversation. This actually is more what her question was, if you guys remember on Thursday. And this is actually closer to it, right? Which is more so like, it's still not exactly her argument, but this is closer to her argument and closer to a lot of arguments of Christians who say that we're wrong because we say you got to keep the law, right? Even though we don't say it, Christ says it. That's why I went to Christ first. But here's Christ again, making it a point to say, hey, there's law. This is why I tell persons all the time, don't get stuck on 613 or 663 or what you call Mosaic laws. That's Mosaic law. That's one law, if you will, right? There's many laws in there, but it's one law or one law group, if you will, right? It's like saying common law. But then guess what? If there's laws, right? If there's Abrahamic covenant, which means there's Abrahamic laws. There's laws that go back to Adam. We might call it Adamic law, maybe. Maybe we can make them a word, right? There's laws that are talking about things that are coming up with Revelation, right? There's a new way of looking at law, right? There's laws of sacrifice, but also now a way that we don't have to give sacrifice as long as we sacrifice, become a living sacrifice for Yehoshua. All laws are not just 613. There are more than just the Mosaic law. Anything a king decrees is considered to be law. So if you have two things that come into place, you have to know which law supersedes the other, right? Are you rolling with me? You have to know, even in legalese, even in stuff that you're going through now, there's a law that supersedes another law, right? There's a law that supersedes another law. So for example, if you deal with a domestic dispute, right? If somebody comes over a house, I used to do military police work, and we used to do domestic disputes in some of the housing that we had. And how you doing, Sister Valerie? If I'm dealing with a domestic dispute and I go to a place or whatever, right? If there's an argument going on, right, and somebody wants somebody to leave, that's a domestic dispute. But there's also a dispute as far as something that I can't deal with anything with, as far as being the military police. So as a police officer, if there's no bruises, there's no fighting, there's no scratches, this and that or whatever, I can't just go ahead and they both said, well, we just don't like each other. So somebody called the police on them because they were yelling. We come over, they were fighting back and forth, this and that or whatever. All right, it's a domestic dispute. That's law. But also, if there really is nothing but they were arguing, if I don't see anything, and even if I see something, if the person says I don't want to press charges, unless it's certain states they would have to anyway. But I'm kind of stuck, right? But because they have to go to court. Those two laws can't necessarily, just because somebody, or even if we came over there and they said, he says, I just want her to leave. And we're like, well, but both of y'all live here. You both get your bills here. How long have you lived here? Okay, you've been here like 2 years. Y'all been together. You got children. We'll actually try to talk them down, calm them down, and then we got to go, right? However, let me bring back the other thing now. Let's say we're in a different state, and all of a sudden, we come over there, and they fighting and they fussing and this and that or whatever, and then all of a sudden, I see let's say, or no, let me keep it the way I had it. Let's say that one of them called on the other. Let's say, um, the I'm just using one as an example. Let's say the wife calls on the husband, and she says, "I need him gone. He beating me up. He doing this and blah blah." We listen to both sides of the story. Both of them are blaming the other person. The husband's like, "She crazy." She's like, "No, I'm not crazy. He beats me up. He does this or whatever." Right? He was strangling me. He was strangling me. He was holding my wrist. He was strangling me. You know what we're gonna do? Once again, we got the same two laws, but there's a law that now supersedes the other because you called. When you called, you made a statement. See, there's like several laws going on, but now one law is supreme because you said he strangled you. You said he put his hands on you, right? As far as your wrist, you said that you were trying to fight him off. You said all the different things. So if that's the case, if you tell me that, there's a law that even if I don't want to do it, this is what happens. Now there's a law that says I have to look and I have to see what's on your neck. Are there any signs? Are there any scratches? Are there any signs that your eyes are red because somebody chokes you? Blood vessels begin to pop up in your eyes and stuff like that. Is there anything that I see where it's really hard for you to breathe at this moment? If you were fighting, do I see any skin under your nails? Right? If I don't see any signs of that, even though both of you might finally say, you know what, it's okay, whatever, we'll deal with it. It don't matter. If I don't see any signs of it, you lied, and you got to go to jail. Right? There's a law that supersedes, even if I don't want it to. Right? Yeah, right? If you don't have to go to jail, or maybe he has to go to jail because everything you tell me, as you telling me, I can see he messed you up. He got to go to jail. Right? But there's a law that supersedes. Even if both of you, even if you start fighting me, hopefully you don't because now I got to arrest you too. But even if you're like, no, I don't want him to go. Isn't that or whatever, ma'am? You need to back up. I know you're upset, but he beat you up. What you said was true. It supersedes. I know. You could say, you can go to court and you can say you don't want to press charges. Now that's between you and the state. That ain't got nothing to do with me. But I have to make sure that or between the city, county, state, whatever it is, that I got to take him in. That's the way this works now, right? So, so, so there's law that can supersede, right? Not, we say this in sovereignty all the time. Not everything that's legal is lawful. Not everything that's lawful is legal, right? But you have to know different types of legal stuff that's going on, different types of law. But we talking about law, right? If we talking about law, you have two laws that come together. These persons are trying to eat and they're hungry, but it's the Sabbath day. Well, what's more important? Which law is more important? That the children of Israel be fed? Which one's more important? That there be meat in his house, right? Or that it's the Sabbath day? Which one's more important? That the babies that might need to eat are eating, or that the babies, we make sure the babies ain't cussing? You see the difference? See, this is when persons on our side take the law too much, and this is when persons on the other side, you taking this thing too far. The law is never supposed to be something that causes us to let a baby starve or to let grown men starve or to be like, hey, you know what? Well, we need something. The family needs help, but hey, we're just gonna go ahead and let them get kicked out because no, that's not ever been the case. That's not ever been the case. You guys take that too far concerning the law. But anyways, back to Matthew 12:9, and I just went on a little bit of a tangent, but hopefully that makes sense, right? Like the law is prayerfully that makes sense, right? That the law, there can be times when you have to look at two laws, they intersect, and you have to make a decision. And even if you make a decision, even if you make the wrong one, there's leniency and there's forgiveness, right? You're making a decision, hopefully with the righteous intent, right? Just because we say not everything that is intended for righteousness is always righteousness, doesn't mean that we don't think anything about righteous intent or that the Most High does not. You see what I'm saying? So yeah, if it's a Sabbath day and your children haven't ate for 3 days, if I find out about it, I'm gonna tell you to feed them babies, right? We're not gonna say, oh well, just because you got paid today, your children haven't ate the last 3 days, they can make it one more day. No, feed them babies. And once again, I'm saying it. If somebody, see, this is why you got to make sure you under somebody, right? Not saying you got to be under me, just whoever you under, blame it on me. The Most High will blame. If I end up wrong and you get before the pearly gate, so to speak, and you get up there, the Most High will say, Pastor Kofi told you. Okay, that's how you. That's how the law works. See, the law doesn't give rights; it protects rights, right? Or if somebody, you go to a camp someday, or you go to another branch of Zion, or you go to a church one day, and you part of them, and you're like, Pastor Kofi used to tell me do this and blah blah whatever, and they say, oh, we don't do this and we don't do this on Sabbath, blah blah. Hey, It's on me then. You see that? That's how authority works. I'm not saying I'm the end all be all of anything. I'm just saying you can tell them I told you. I told you it's acceptable to make sure that hungry persons eat on Sabbath. I told you it's okay to go ahead and be one with your wife on Sabbath. Yeah, I sure did. Right? And if anybody got a problem with it, you can hey tell them come holler. Right? I told you all that. It's a lie. But it's the truth. It's the truth. These cats be out having us out here fighting over some of this stuff, and some of this stuff I just be looking like, I'm not trying to call anybody a name. I'm just being honest, man. Like we be acting slow on some of this. Like, what's more important? Like, you don't know this within yourself. You don't recognize this within yourself. You don't have enough spirit. I'm just being come on, somebody. These cats don't have enough spirit to tell you and I, hey, it's all right to somebody make sure that they take care of their children on Sabbath day. It's all right to make sure that your car works so that you can take care of your family. I told you I've had persons I had to talk to. I told you that before. I've had persons that I had to talk to and have communication with because they legit thought that they were bad. Um, they thought it was bad to get their car fixed. The only day that they could get their car fixed was on a Saturday, and they never got their car fixed for weeks and weeks and weeks. They were missing money. Business started failing. All this stuff, and I'm like, yo, get your car fixed. Right? Don't be one of these persons that are less than an infidel. He who can't take care of his family less than an infidel. Which one is more important? You be an infidel or less than an infidel, or you keep the Sabbath on today. And by the way, it doesn't mean you're not keeping the Sabbath. I'm just gonna keep it a buck with you. There's no scripture that says that you can't make sure. Now we didn't have vehicles back then, granted, but I think the ox comparison is pretty decent. There's no scripture that says that if you don't need to save something or save a life or save something that will help your family, right? Then you shouldn't do it because it's the Sabbath. I just haven't seen it. I just haven't seen it. I could be wrong on that. Once again, tell them Pastor Kofi said it, so you don't have to tell them this dude named Kofi you saw on there, whatever you've been listening to him. You ain't gotta say I'm your pastor. Just tell them there's this dude on there. I've been listening to him. He told me this. Right. So when they yell at you, right, you can say somebody else told you. Well, yeah, probable cause in there too, but I'm just saying there's different types of laws that come in, is what I'm saying. Like laws intersect, right? So we have to know how to deal with that and how they intersect. Let's see. Back to Matthew real quick. Matthew chapter 12, verse 10. And if you'd like to call in, if you have a question, comment, concern, if you'd like to call in, you can call in through Clapper. I'm sorry, we were way behind on that, but it is available at least for the next 25, 30 minutes or so. Probably, I guess, maybe even 35 minutes or so. If you'd like to call in through Clapper, you feel more than welcome to. You can call in, and we should be able to hear you via Bluetooth. And you can ask whatever question, have you have a question, comment, or concern. It's on the Clapper app. Um, and when you call, you have to download Clapper's spelled CLAPPER. Download the Clapper app. Look for my name, Kofi Ofori, or even look up hashtag Find Kofi. You should even be able to look up hashtag We Be the Nation, and that should pop up. Look at this on the live session and call in if you'd like to be able to call in rather than just typing in your comment, question, and concern. Alrighty, but yeah. So continuing through Matthew chapter 12, verse verse 9. Let's go to verse 9. So, and when he was departed thence, he then went to their synagogue. And behold, there was a man which had hand withered, had his hand withered, and asked him, and they asked him, saying, is it lawful to heal on the Sabbath days, that they might accuse him? The only reason why they even asked him is that they might accuse him. Hear me, beloved. See, sometimes you got to even be careful with some of these things that are coming on, because some of these cats, when they asking you stuff, they're only asking you so they might accuse you. How you doing? She's living in favor, right? I need you to comprehend. There's some persons, even on these Q&A sessions, and I don't mind having them. We'll continue to have them. There's some persons who are only asking this stuff so that they can accuse you, right? You have to be careful. That's an apologetics thing, apologetics 101 piece. right? That's apologetics 101. There's somebody out there who's going to ask you a question just because they're ready for you to try and step in on it. Or some persons are asking you, like a lot of persons, that's why you'll even hear me sometimes when somebody will ask a question and I can tell, I'll just be like, all right, if you don't mind, can you just go ahead and say what you're actually leading me to? Because I don't want to assume. I think you're leading me toward that, but can you just ask, ask your question? Because they'll ask a question and it's like really small and you're like, okay, I'm going to say yes to this. Then even if I do humor, I say, okay, yes to the first one. I say yes to the second question. I say yes to the third. Eventually, right? Like, and that's, by the way, I teach like that a lot. So I get I know what the reference is, but eventually I just go, can you just tell me what it is that you have? Because, unfortunately, this is not your program and we got other places to go, quite possibly, right? So there are some persons you gotta know. Sometimes when somebody asks you a question, or you're like, man, this question kind of stupid or bogus, or obviously they would know the answer to this, right? They're asking it not because they don't think that they should know the answer to it. They're asking to it because they're trying to get you to either agree to something before they hem you up, or they're trying to get you to say something because they know that you live something different than what they want you to, and therefore they're waiting for you to step in, so-called step in it. So always be aware that there's some person who's asking a question just because they're waiting to see, all right, when I ask this question, what are they going to say next? Or, hey, he did this way back when. So when he did this, I'm going to bring it back up. Always recognize that questions have context as well. So they asked him, and this is what Yehoshua said. Matthew chapter 12, verse 11. And he said unto them, what man shall there be among you that shall have one sheep? Now watch this. We ain't talking about the ox here. We're talking about the sheep. One man, it be among you that shall have one sheep. Persons don't like this, right? They ask him a question and they wait and answer the question. I just want a yes or no. I just want this response. No. You don't know what you're talking about. Let me make sure that I show you that you're not aware of what it is that you're asking. You ready? What man shall there be among you that shall have one sheep, and if it fall into a pit on the Sabbath day, will he not lay hold on it and lift it out? How much then is a man better than a sheep? Wherefore is it lawful to do well on Sabbath days? Look at that. You talking about, is it okay to heal a man? He says, okay, fine, let's take it to the next level. Which one of you, if you ain't have lamb chops, fall? Which one of you, if you ain't have some clothes, what could become clothing, fall? Which one of you, if you just have a relationship with a sheep, would fall, wouldn't make sure that you did everything you could to make sure that that sheep was safe? And if you do that with a physical sheep, then how about Yahweh's sheep? How about the spiritual sheep? How about the ones that he'll tell Peter in the end of John? He'll say, well, if you love me, take care of my adult sheep, and take care of my lambs, and take care of the flock. Right? Before you start telling me about this and that or whatever, which one of you wouldn't make sure you save a sheep? If you'll save a sheep, why would you not take care of a man? See, persons, once again, they don't comprehend how law works, right? What a king decrees. So what we've done is, well, if the Most High says we can't do any work, we'll let a sheep fall, or we'll save a sheep, but we shouldn't save a man. And the only persons that would do that are religious leaders who are out here trying to take advantage, who will allow you to make sure that they never fall, but won't make sure that they try to help you when you fall. And anybody who's trying to take what we're teaching or what we're trying to live or what the Bible says and make it into something like that, no, you can kick rocks. Right? You can kick rocks. That's not what we stand for. That's not what we stood for. That's not what we've ever stood for. And anybody trying to change it into something different, something wrong. Thank you for the love. Appreciate it. You see what I'm saying? But persons will mismanage the word. We've never, and if some of you do, right, repent and do something different now. We've never been a people. Can I say it again? We've never, ever been a people who are supposed to make sure that we'll save sheep, physical sheep, save product, save money, save this, not do this, not do that because it's Sabbath. Meanwhile, allow our brother or sister to go down. There's never been that. That's never how the law was supposed to be in the first place. That's never been the context of it. There's never been that. Come on, there's a lot of churches that do that. There's a lot of camps that do that if we keep it a buck. We've never been that. Matter of fact, I tell persons this all the time. Persons don't be believing me. But man, some of the stuff I'm still asking for to help us out with and stuff, if I had just done what churches do, man, shoot, I could have been just been like, hey man, I'll be straight for the rest of my life. For real, for real. Y'all know it. There are persons that y'all haven't even told me about. You know, we help persons over at SOC. Y'all know we do. But there's so much money. If it was just like, oh, I'm paying myself, which a lot of people be like sitting there and doing, or hey, we just taking care of SOC, we just doing events, but we don't do nothing else. Man, we could have made so much more money. If we was just like, yo, we come on here, we preach, give us your tithes, give us your offerings, that's it. We ain't gonna do nothing for the community. No, this be the nation. We operate in nationality. Yeah, we need to unlearn the Christianity and and those Hebrew, even some of these Hebrew Israelite teachings that aren't necessarily correct. If it's not correct, don't matter who it's coming from, right? But it's never been because it's the Sabbath day. This is why the question's even there about sex. When we start getting to a place to where I can't be one with my spouse because it's the Sabbath, who you serving? Word is bond on that. Like who you been serving to where you can't be one with your spouse? What scripture is that? When did Christ tell you that? What apostle was preaching that? Paul was celibate and still ain't teach that. Paul even said, man, shoot, if it was, he wished that everybody could be like him because they would have more time to focus on the kingdom and stuff. He said, that being said, though, shoot, it's better to marry than it is to burn. I'm not gonna go too deep into that. We left that alone. But I'm just saying, we get into these places where we so holy, depending on what you think holiness is, we become so holy that persons don't know what holiness is. Can't do stuff because of the Sabbath. Look, I'm not saying that you shouldn't make it a point to rest on the Sabbath, right? But even rest is different than what we think it is. How you doing, Elder Anais? If I didn't say so already, please forgive me. All right. So he said unto them, what man shall it be among you that shall have one sheep, and if it fall into a pit on the Sabbath day, will he not lay hold on it and lift it out? How much then is a man better than a sheep? Wherefore it is lawful to do well on the Sabbath days. It is lawful to do what? To do well. It is lawful to do what? Do well. First of all, if anything else, on any day, whether it's the Sabbath or not, can we make sure we do well? Come on, my brother. Come on, my sister. Is that all right? Can we go back to that? Can we do well by one another, for one another? Verse 13. Then saith he to the man, right? Then he said to the man, so he said, but just in case you ain't think that was enough. he said, just in case though, because you sitting up here Sabbath, you sitting up here trying to catch me on law, you don't even know who I am, because the same person that I was quoting about who would forgive you and stuff and stop, it will make you blameless. You don't even realize that I'm him right now in front of you. But he said, this is what I'll do. He said, he turned to the man who had his hand with it, and he said, stretch forth thine hand, just in case you thought it wasn't acceptable to do so. Here is the Messiah doing it himself. He said, stretch forth your hand. And the man stretched it forth, right? And it was restored whole, like as the other. Now, I don't think persons catch what's going on. The man's hand is withered. And forgive me, I'm not trying to make fun of anybody's ableism, but the man, his hand is withered. Could have been where it didn't move, but more than likely, it's something along the lines of this. By the way, this doesn't mean mental retardation or anything like that. By the way, there's persons who deal with situations, extreme arthritis, are born to where stuff seizes up, etc., to where their hand is withered, right? Doesn't move. It doesn't really do much or anything. They have it there. They're able to maybe every once in a while expand it here or there, but they can't really do much. But his hand is withered, right? His hand is withered. And he said, stretch forth your hand. When he said that, it doesn't even make sense that he would say, take this and stretch it forward. It doesn't make sense that something that's withered. It's like me saying to this, I don't even know if I got one that's withered. It's pretty withered. It's like me saying to this leaf, become green and luscious again. It doesn't make sense, right? On any day, let alone on the Sabbath. But see, once again, was the Sabbath, were you created for the Sabbath, or was the Sabbath created for you? See, we got to reverse this thing. See, it doesn't even make sense. He had a withered hand. He had a withered hand. His hand shouldn't stretch. But he commanded that what we think shouldn't happen, he commanded that it happen. He said, stretch forth your hand, and he stretched it. And when he stretched it, it was whole. when he was obedient. I love this. I love the way he did this. Come on, he created for us to rest in. I love when he says it. Like I love the word and the way it's written, because basically what it's saying is he never even stopped. I can't say he didn't doubt, but it doesn't say anything. It just says that he gave a command and the man stretched. That's a whole word for somebody right there, right? Has y'all been commanding you something and he just waiting for you to stretch, and you're so busy being like, ooh. He said, stretch your hand, Kofi. Well, you know, Kofi, stretch your finance. I know, Kofi, stretch your effort. Oh, I know, Kofi, stretch your sleeping habits. Oh, I know, Kofi, stretch. Stretch. Be willing to tell the truth about what's going on in your life and be vulnerable for. I don't know, but no, don't think about it. Stretch. And when he did it, it says it was whole. In the moment, he was made whole as soon as he stretched. He was made whole as soon as he was obedient. He was really, if you get the context, he was made whole when somebody else questioned who the Messiah was. But when he didn't question who the Messiah was, he was made whole while the religious leaders are cursed. Come on, somebody. You got to catch the context of the whole thing. He says, stretch his hand, and immediately. Then the Pharisees, now watch this though, right? It was made whole like the other. It was made whole like the other. There was no different. He could do both of them at the same time. For the first time in his life, he didn't have one hand that he was talking with and pointing and saying this. For the first time, he could talk to you, he can do this. And that might sound like it's simple to some. When Yah makes you whole and he makes you fit in, and when he takes one part of the body for us has been withered, and now he's getting it to where it's starting to move like the rest of the body, oh, this is going to mess with persons, because as soon as he does this, you would think that everybody would rejoice. But verse 14, Matthew chapter 12, verse 14 tells you the way the persons look at this. It says, then the Pharisees went out and held counsel against him that they might destroy him. The Pharisees then, when they saw this, everybody else rejoicing, praising, the man probably, jumping up and down. I can lift. look at my hands, look at my hands. They immediately came together and left him with like, we got to get rid of this Negro over here. Right? Here he is healing folk. And they see him healing, and they say, we got to destroy him. Now, why would you destroy him? Because you use the Sabbath to make sure that the man will stay withered. He heals on the Sabbath, and you say that he's unlawful because he'll keep the law and not allow, right, himself to stop from healing, because the law is because healing somebody is just as necessary as keeping the Sabbath, if not more so. You're more upset because keeping the Sabbath, right? The persons who don't like it on both ends, whether it be followers of the way, or it be Hebrew Israelites, it be kingdom citizens, it be Moors, it be Negroes, it be Israelites, it be Ashkenazi, it be Khazarian, it be whatever. Cats are willing to make sure that you stay suffering because it's written somewhere that you should stay suffering. Meanwhile, yes, we suffer for righteousness, but meanwhile, there's at least Christ who has the ability, who says, hey, I'd rather heal you and I'd rather you be successful, even if if somebody has tried to tell you that the Sabbath means that you must not ever do anything, that you must stay in the same place, that you must stay in poverty, that you must not know the word, that you must remain poor in spirit, that you must remain poor in spirit to the point to where you think the kingdom's not even for you, to where you won't even mourn because you don't think you should be comforted, because you won't be humble because you don't even realize what humility brings to you as far as obtaining the earth, because you've been taught not to be merciful when you don't even deserve mercy. You've been taught that somebody makes a whole bunch more money, so they get more money, so that means they're higher up in the food chain than you. All this foolishness or whatever. Christ said, look, I've come to let you know that it's lawful for you to keep the Sabbath, but I'm not going to forget that it's lawful for you to get healed. It's lawful for you to keep the Sabbath, but I'm not going to forget it's lawful for you to get a word. It's lawful for you to make sure that your wife is in submission, but I'm not going to forget that she's supposed to have a husband that loves her. It's righteous for a husband, right? It's righteous for a husband to make sure that he's willing to die for his wife. He also deserves somebody who's going to make sure that she's submitted to the mission. It's righteous that a child would obey their parents, but it's also righteous that a father not provoke his children to wrath. Do you hear what I'm saying? It's righteous, all those things, but I'm not going to say that just because you follow one doesn't mean that you shouldn't follow it wholly. And that's the problem that we have. And these persons are arguing over law, not even realizing what's whole. They were going to let this man stay withered. Be careful around somebody who will let you stay withered, let you stay in a withered position because it's the Sabbath day. Be careful about somebody who will go ahead and let you be in a position where they won't take you to the hospital, but they'll call 911 as they're running the church. Somebody missed that one. I'm not even exaggerating. Be careful about cats to where they'll let you down 911 or they'll dial 911 for you out of love, but they'll dial 911 on the way to church because they got to make sure because pastor said that so and so going to be a guest preacher today and they don't want to miss it. They got to be obedient. Mm-hmm. Right? Be careful about the one who's busy making sure that they're so busy making sure that they worship on Sunday that they won't make sure that they'll pray for you on any other day. I'm just saying, be careful. This is what it's talking about. We have this thing about Sabbath. Now, I'm not saying we don't keep the Sabbath at all. Far from that, right? But you gotta know how law works. We get into a place where persons can't even get help because it's the wrong day. Person can't even get help because they didn't wear their fringes. You need to shut all the way. I'm about to say something crazy. Excuse me. You need to shut all the way up with that. I'm just being honest. You ain't got your fringes on, so nobody should listen to you. Fringe or not, is it the word? I've said this before, I'll say it again. I'm not saying that I'm going to follow somebody per se who's homosexual, but if a homosexual person says, hey, you shouldn't yell at your wife, get yourself in order, and make sure that you live righteous, the answer is amen. And if anything, you should be embarrassed. If you feel like that about them just because they're homosexual, you should be embarrassed because the fact that they were pointed out, even though they don't even do that, and they don't live by the standard, but they can tell you about it and they see you acting the fool. You get so lawful that you can't hear anything. Now, once again, y'all know, I'm not sitting up here saying that homosexuality is correct. It's not. It's not righteous. That being said, how is it the person that's unrighteous can see more unrighteousness than what you doing, ye who are so righteous? Got to ask ourselves some questions. They went out to put counsel together. So Yehoshua, he withdrew himself from this, and the great multitudes followed them, and he healed them all. See, this is the thing we got to catch. When we get back to righteousness, the great multitude, they followed Christ because Christ was willing to heal. Sometimes, yes, persons are following in great multitudes because they just like what somebody does. And we should be careful about that, right? But sometimes it's because we're doing what's righteous. Can I say something? And I'm not trying. Look, I'm not trying to big time nobody. Y'all knows I'm not. We are not anywhere close to what we used to be, and nor are we trying to be. And I get that we don't do everything for numbers. I want to make that very clear. But can I also talk to the other side, to where there are persons that use the excuse that, right? Because I've had persons and we're not even big time, right? At least as far in the kingdom we are. But as far as what the whole social media thing and everything, I've had persons attack me so much in life. Can I just put this out here? And some of you probably have seen some of this happen too, right? Where persons will attack me because they'll say, well, we're not worried about having so many numbers, that we don't need a bunch of persons to do this, and we don't need music to play, and we don't need this. Matter of fact, I don't trust persons that have big ministries, because if they have big ministries, then it means that they're not actually teaching and blah, blah, and this and that or whatever. And can I just be honest with you? This is why you got to know the word for yourself, and you got to study, whether they be persons that pull in hundreds of thousands, or they be persons that pull in two or three. Two or three you can do a lot with, hundreds of thousands you can do a lot with. That being said, I want to help you with something. Sometimes you're not getting the numbers because persons don't follow trash. Salah. I know that's going to be tough for somebody today. Once again, I'm not saying it's all about numbers. There are times that I'll come and I'll do a live session, still to this day, and it might be 0 to 1 person that listen to the whole thing, depending on what time I put it on. Hey, cool. I'm not doing it for numbers. Hear what I'm saying, though. Sometimes persons aren't listening to you because you're not worth being listened to. Sometimes persons see that you preaching stuff that's not true and it's not correct, so they're not going to follow stuff that's not true and it's not correct. Right? You might not be the person that everybody, and I'm not saying everybody. This is why you got to be led by Holy Spirit. Do what you're called to do and be humble enough to be comfortable with wherever he gives you. He might give you, look, I've gone through it. He might give you 2,000 persons 12 to 1,300 persons on a live session concurrently on one platform. And then you might have to come back after you've been trying to fight for your stuff and be thankful that now you get 9 and 10. And then if you get to a place where you get 100 and something, and you get a total on all of them about 150 to 200 persons, you'll be satisfied. By the way, that's not bad either, right? But I'm just saying, you got to be okay with where Yah wants you to be, right? And and one of the reasons, if see, watch this, you might be coveting. Now, look, I know there's a desire to reach as many as possible, but you got to realize sometimes we're coveting things that are not even for us. I don't know how we got here out of Shabbat, but we just gonna keep. I believe we're on track with Holy Spirit. Look. Sometimes you might be coveting things that they're not even for. You're right, coveting things that are not for you. Right? You want something that somebody else has. You need and desire something that somebody else got to do or whatever, and it's not even for you. It's not even for you, right? So, anyways, whoever that was for is who it's for. Last thing that I have, I think this is all we're gonna have time for after this. We're gonna do our shout out, and hopefully you guys enjoy your days. Last thing that I have for you, real quick, is well, I'm trying to get to. I'm sorry, y'all. Last thing is a question. Oh, um, I want us to get into this thing or whatever. I want to reiterate this. It was a question that was given. As also somebody said something about this earlier today too, but it's a question that was earlier in the chat. It might have been even yes. I think I'm confused. I think it's yesterday. Either way, question. Last question for the day that we have time for about the name. And I'm not talking about the name of everybody. I think it was brought up as far as it being the name within us, right? I want us to hear this and get this very clear, right? I want us to get very, very clear, and especially as far as here with SOC. And somebody did ask the question, and this was kind of reiterated actually today during prayer as well, right? And I touch and agree with what was said too, just to make that clear too, for those that were with us on prayer earlier, right? But somebody asked basically the same thing earlier, which was when it comes to his name, is it Yah? Is it Yahweh? Is it Yahuwah? Is it Yahweh? Is it Yahuwah? Is it Yehovah? Is it Jehovah? Is it Yehovah? Etc. 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 Right? We use Yehovah because we're using original, what basically would have been used from the time of Moses and before, right? That's using the language of all creation, as Jubilee chapter 12 said, and trying to make sure that we use it in its original form before it got fixed into a lot of modern sounds. So even more Sephardic sounding, if you know about Sephardic, Ashkenazic, and Khazarian, the Sephardic are us, and we had a pronunciation. There's a lie that's told that our language, the original Hebrew language, the language of all creation, that it was lost and it's been gone for 2,000 years, and it was a dead language. When the reality is that those who are modern Hebrews took pronunciation, took words that we were using, and redid the pronunciations, and even took them and changed them. Right. So, for example, even if you're learning modern Hebrew, if you learn the word map is the word mapa or mappa. That's not original. Right? It's just not. It's not even close. So, that's somebody else's language. Somebody took some things, added a couple sounds here or there or whatever, and did all that. That's right. We're the original, right? We be the original nation, right? So that being said, though, right? I get dialects. For example, my name is Kofi, right? If you go to a certain place, though, not too far from where I get that name from, it'd be Kofi, right? My original name actually be, if you go by the original pronunciation, would be Kofi, right? But my name is Kofi, right? That's what I'm known as. That's what I'm known as originally, where I got the name from, right? That name might have different dialects, but it doesn't change, right? So I need you to recognize that the name is the name. So yeah, if there are persons who went to different places, especially scattered, especially through, even before chattel slavery, persons forget, in Brazil, they were taking Negroes over there in the 1400s. We always talk about 1619. That's England in the United States of America, and that's not technically even the first time that England is there. It's definitely not the first time that even Europeans are over there. Go look at how early they were getting over there in Florida, and go look and see, Leif Erikson and how early he got there, and go look at who we call Squanto, to Squantum, and see that when he showed up to talk to persons who were showing up, that he had already been a slave over in Spain and in England, right? But those things being said, right? Those things being said, I get that there is different dialects and there'll be different sounds. And there's somebody that doesn't say Kofi, there's somebody that says Kofi, 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 right? Some people try to say coffee because they're not used to the name. I get there's different dialects, I get there's different things or whatever, but my name is my name. The same thing is with the Most High Yah. His name is his name. So if there's dialects, that's why I'm not arguing. That's why I don't argue Yahuwah versus Yahweh versus Yahweh or whatever. Because this is talking about where somebody learned the language or what even dialect, which also means accent and other things that are coming about as well, right? So this and also persons who are learning modern Hebrew, hey, at least you're making trying your best to get closer to something that was your culture, even if it's not technically your culture. That being said, right, there's a difference between a name and a title. There's a difference between a name and a title, right? There's a difference between a name and a nickname, right? But if the name is Yahweh, if there's a dialect that goes to Yahuwah, that's one thing, right? If you say when you talk to Yahweh, you say, "Oh man, you know that's my dad," right? That's Abba. That's that's Yahya. There's different things, dialects and stuff like that, of course, right? But his name is his name, and the reason why we have to make sure, even if you speak in different dialects, that we at least acknowledge the name, right? I still have songs where you hear the name Jesus pop up here, there, whatever. When we do our shout out, I do a lot less of it, but that stuff happens and stuff. And by the way, even if you're using the name Jesus and that's where you are, you're going through an experience, you're learning, you're growing, you're going to find out different things about what Jesus actually means, that it's a nickname within itself, and when it actually came about and when it became something you use it. It's not even original. Christ himself would have never been known by Jesus. He was never known as that. He never was. If you had said G, matter of fact, in his language, there's no such thing as a just sound, whether it be G or the letter J. That's something that came from someone else. Those things being said, though, it's important that we recognize his name, right? His name is his authority, period. Yahweh, Yahweh, Yahuwah, right? Those are dialects. Yahuwah, Yahweh, those are dialects. But Yahweh, right? That's his name. Yahweh, that's his name, period. In a discussion, and thank you, Sister Mignon, I'm sorry I missed it, right? In a discussion, that's his name, right? You learn his name. If you want to call him a nickname, fine. If you go close to him, cool. But then here's the interesting thing, even about that stuff. I just want to put this out here. Here's the interesting thing about that as well. If you use somebody's nickname, not everybody can even call them that nickname. Come on, somebody. Right? You know how this works. Not everybody's allowed to call you by a nickname, especially certain nicknames the closer you are, because there's certain nicknames that persons might know you by, and you allow it, but you don't allow it to anybody. Watch this. There's a funny story. I forget is it Dion Cole? I think Dion Cole is a comedian who I'm thinking about. He talked about how he met Lawrence Fishburne. And when he met Lawrence Fishburne wasn't as big as he is now. He met him right after some movie that he did. I forget what it's called, but he did some movie, and it might even go back to Fled or something like that. Y'all remember that Gotta Fled? That's old movie right there. Well, not old, but that's one of the movies where you didn't just go see box office, whatever. Like he was in it with one of the Baldwins or something. It's actually a pretty decent movie. It's kind of stereotypical about a book '90s black guy beats white guy, and somehow we make it out thing or whatever. But Dion Cole talks about how he saw in the credit. I think it was from that movie he saw in the credit. I could be wrong, but he saw in the credits for some movie that Lawrence Fishburne did that his name was Larry Fishburne. Right? That's what they put up in the credits. If they put that up in the credits, by the way, that's probably because that's what he asked for them to put up there, right? Or somebody knew him or whatever, was talking to him as Larry, and maybe he doesn't know that in the credits they put up Larry Fishburne or whatever, right? Since then, he's become a much bigger guy, whatever. So Dion Cole is somewhere, and Lawrence Fishburne is somewhere, and they talking, And he go, and he, or no, no, he talking to somebody else, and he's like starstruck to a certain degree. He go, hey, yo, what's up, Larry? How you doing? Yeah, Larry, I like blah blah. And and Lawrence Fishburne looks at him and go, and Ninja, my name ain't Edward. Ninja, my name ain't. He's a Ninja. My name is Lawrence. And he was like, and he like kind of like posted up on him a little bit. He was like, yo, oh, okay, my fault, my bad, because and they had been out. And he's well, yeah. Anyway, and they had been like, but he was sitting there in the car, and he was like, "Whoa!" And then he's like, Whatever made you think you could call me Larry?" Blah blah. And then he's like, "That's what it said in the movie that I saw." And he go, "Oh." He's like, "Well, my name is you know me as Lawrence, right?" Because the closer somebody gets to you, not everybody uses that name. And see, this is one of the things that I'm telling you. The closer you get, right? The closer you get to Yah, you will recognize that He only wants you to call Him by a certain name. And if you know Him better, see, watch it, right? If you know Him, right? Look, you might know Him from an auxiliary purpose, and you're learning Him more and more, and you're growing more and more, right? There's certain things, right? That, but He says, uh oh. We got a bee going around. Anyway, he says, call me by. Okay, the seasons must be changing. We got bees around. All right. Anyways, as long as it's not a hornet. The hornets tore us up last time. But but anyways, excuse me. But he has a PTSD. My bad. He but he got his whole thing. He's like, no, you don't know me by that. You know me by Lawrence. In other words, this person that know me close, that you know me close enough, yeah, everybody. Yeah, you said, yeah, not everybody can call you that, and nor should they. And even we know that there's person that call you that. If they don't have a relationship with you like that, they don't call you that. Matter of fact, right? There's names that are just between my wife and I, right? And nobody calls my wife certain things. Nobody call me certain things. And I'm not just talking about babe and stuff like that, which we shouldn't be calling nobody else that either. But I'm saying there's names that I don't want y'all to ever know. Maybe you'll know it if you get close to us, like to a point where we ain't talking about just family, because there's family that don't even know some of these names that are had for me or whatever. Names that are actually legit names that come from other things and other cultures and stuff that are part of my, being raised and stuff like that. But it's not for everybody, and there's reasons for it, right? So even if you find out certain things, I would be upset if you ever walked up to me and called that because I don't know you like that. Now, same thing with the name of Yah, right? He says, call me this. He says, this name should be a monument to me. For anybody that knows me, this should be a monument to me forever. That's what he said in Exodus chapter 3, verse 15. He said, my name is Yahweh Elohim. I am the Elohim, I am Elohim Shaddai of, Abraham, of Isaac, at Yahad, right? Or of Yakab. And he says, and the name that I've given you should be with anybody who's going to be with me shall know me as until forever, which basically means they know in the beginning. He says, anybody who says that they know me, who part of the kingdom, who's part of the nation, they say, this is my name, period. So yeah, I get the stuff and I get this stuff. And by the way, yeah, when you praying to somebody and stuff like that, but it ain't the same as when you just seeing your homie and you call them homie and you call them this and you call your girlfriend and da da. Right? Yeah, like if you talk to Yah, you don't say, oh yeah, that's my boyfriend. No, he don't play with titles like that. If you don't say, oh yeah, when I talk to him, I call him this and that. I mean, maybe that's between you and him that you can call him, Yah or Yazi or something like that. Maybe y'all come with some creative stuff. I know that what he said in the titles that he put in, the credits of the Bible that he put on there, he said, call me by Yahweh. Call me Yah, sure. Yah, which by the way, there's also another way of looking at the name because Yah don't just mean a shortcut either. See, that's once again culturally. We think Yah just means, oh yeah, it's just like saying, instead of saying Kofi, saying Kof. No, that's not. It's not the same thing. It's not the same thing, right? Right? Or, people be like, oh yeah, he's the Al Elyon. Yeah, that's not his name though. That's explaining his position in any kind of thing you try to put him in. Al Elyon is saying that he's greater than all. Right? But he's the first and the last. Yeah, that's not his name though. That's him telling you his position. But he's the living Elohim, yeah, that's his position. That's his, that right. That's a position he's in. See, when you look at occupations, when you look at work titles and stuff like that, titles are there to tell you somebody's position. And in the kingdom, see, once again, we're gonna have to start talking about royalty tomorrow. We're gonna be run out the gates. I might be on a couple times throughout the day talking about royalty, right? But when you talk about royalty, you got to recognize. I hope you guys catch this. When we speaking on royalty, whenever somebody has has a title, that title means you're supposed to do something. There's nothing worse than being royalty and everybody knowing somebody made up a title for you, but you don't even do nothing. Because it means right, like to have a title but you don't do nothing means you really ain't got no authority anyways. Well, all praises to the Most High. Is it Yabaido? I'm not sure how you pronounce it. Sorry, I don't know the dialect and pronunciation, but thanks for being on with us, right? So we're gonna get ready to take our leave. Time is up pretty much. Yeah, we got like a minute left. But yeah, take that with you. That yeah, when we talk about the name is important because that's what he said his name is. And he said if you don't use his name, he said, well then that's he said then that name is a monument. Now what is a monument? Real quick, I know I'm about to go a couple minutes over probably, but I'm gonna try to keep this real short and sweet, as short as I can. What is the purpose of a monument? If somebody makes a monument, what is their reasoning for it? Why is it even that somebody would take a monument down? If you take over Kuwait, or I'm sorry, Iraq, why do you pull down the monument of Saddam Hussein? If you go to Ghana and they try to put up in our schools a monument of Gandhi, why do you tear it down? If you go down, if you go to all the stuff that they've had up with General Lee, why do they have to put up apologies and change up what they've been telling you about General Lee for the longest time in front of his monument, right? Because a monument is something that's supposed to leave a legacy, and a monument is supposed to be, yes, that's right, in remembrance of, come on. And a monument is supposed to be something that causes us to say, we look up to this. A monument says, at this spot, this is what it means. A monument is really supposed to say, there's nothing more true than what you see depicted right here. A monument brings about memories. Come on. A monument talks about legacy. That's right. So if his name is a monument that we're supposed to use, that means every time we use his name, we look up to this monument. We create this monument. Persons are supposed to ask. Have you ever noticed, especially persons don't know his name, when you use the name Yahweh, you use the name Yahashvai, when you say Ravak Hakwadash, have you ever noticed that somebody will say, who is that? Right? Because it's different. It stands out. It makes him who he is. See, we don't do this Jesus thing where everybody's like, just name your child Jesus. No. There's only one Yehoshaphat, right? There were many, even up before him, because it was a common name. But the Yehoshaphat, son of Nun, is the only one that we really put up there and even talk about anywhere close to as much as we talk about Yehoshaphat, our Messiah. Why is that? Because even he is supposed to be the second Yehoshaphat to take us into the land of Canaan that the law of Moses just within itself couldn't do. Oh, I'm sorry. I had this on my face. I hope this is lotion. Yeah, it's lotion. Oh, my greatness. Oh, anyways, my bad, yo. I was like, hold on, let me see that. Yeah, it's lotion. All right, anyway, my bad. That's disgusting. I thought it was something else. But I was like, how's it up here? And my beard. All right. And my mustache, yeah. It was all over the place. But, yeah, so, but his name is not to be played with, not to be trifled with, right? And so we keep his name and we keep it on purpose. We guard it, right? We make sure that it's there. We make sure that it remains efficient. We make sure that it stays where it's supposed to stay, right? That's right. You said erected in memory of a person, event, etc. as a building, pillar, or statue. There you go, right? So that's what his name is. And we don't play with it, and we don't allow anybody to be like, oh, it's really not, it don't matter what you call him. No, it does. Right? Now, if you're talking about nicknames, yeah, sure. Say, oh yeah, he's my provider. He's the one who's my strong tower. Matter of fact, his name is a strong tower. He's not a strong tower. It says that the name of Yah is a strong tower. The righteous, that's what the icon, we run inside and we are safe. How you gonna be safe and it's not inside his name? We're not inside, right? And I'm not saying Elohim is not somebody we can be safe inside of. That's his title. But it says that his name is what we run inside of. His name is protection. His name is law. Alrighty. So, anyways, thank y'all. I appreciate you. Oh yeah, as you know, and it's remembrance as well. That's right. Remembrance. Remember. So if something's dismembered, right? If something's cut off and it's dismembered, then what do? We make sure that we pick it up. We try to put it back on, and we try to remember it. So we're coming back into stuff. Stuff's been cut off from us, but we got to make sure that the bare minimum we can do is make sure we teach his name, if nothing else. But anyways, I thank y'all. I appreciate you. That's all that I got for today. I know that our time is up. We've been out here for a little while now. Thank you so much for being on. We're gonna do our. Matter of fact, I don't even know if. I guess we can try. We'll try and do a shout out. I'm not sure how well it's gonna come off and how well it's gonna sound, but I'm gonna go ahead and take my leave. It's time to go. Time for family day for today. I thank you everybody for being on and once again spending some time with us. We hope that this word touched you in the manner that it needed to, and hopefully it's working on healing you. Yeah. Thank you for tuning in. Those who are looking for physical calendars, let us know. We still have some ready to go. And those of you who've gotten yours, we're thankful that you got yours. Maybe even if y'all don't mind, feel free to maybe send us a little picture or something. Let us know what it looks like if you got it posted in your house, or if you just want to show that you received your calendar, whatever. Let us know. Also, too, we're looking at orders of giving out. I don't know how many we're going to give out. I don't want to speak for Elder Alma, but I know for at least a couple persons who've reached out, we're looking at putting Passover packages together. Also for Purim, I put out yesterday. I hope everybody caught it. If not, you should be able to look in your email for it. If not, reach out to me and I'll try to copy and paste and send it out to you guys again, or maybe ask somebody in the diaspora if you can, just ask them if you can copy and paste and they can send it out again. But we did send out some recipes for you guys to try if you'd like to try something for Purim. A couple of desserts like with some unleavened bread, and I think we even sent some stuff that's actually Hebrew influenced as well, but is known as it's just on there as Senegalese food. But we sent some different things out there if you'd like to try and attempt it for Purim coming up. What we're going to do for Purim is it's going to be on Tuesday evening, probably going to be on Zoom only. We'll probably record the message, but it'll be on Zoom only. We'll have a couple different things, icebreakers, games. Some of you had suggested some things and said that you'd like to maybe do some things. If you would, feel free to reach out to us. Basically, if I don't know about it by tomorrow afternoonish, maybe tomorrow evening, then it's probably not going to show up on Purim. But Purim, we will be on. I'll probably be on and do a live session in the Rising just to preach and teach some about Purim as well. And but it's just pretty much a celebration. It's not anything that you have to be. This is not a one of our six, if you will. There's a big six, if you will, of Hebrew holy days that we have to keep. They are Passover, Feast of Unleavened Bread, Pentecost, Feast of Trumpets, the Day of Atonement, and the Feast of Tabernacles. We are doing Purim this year, and we are doing Hanukkah, which is the Feast of Dedication, later on at the end of the year. But those are not ones that we have to do. Those are things that we do in recognition. Is like they're kind of more of a tradition of our fathers. Hanukkah celebrating basically what happened in Maccabees and the reestablishing of the temple in 8 days. And Purim is just kind of us celebrating the fact that we could have been taken out by our enemy, but we were not. And so we celebrate it come together for that, right? So that'll be on Tuesday evening. I got to double check the time. I think the music is going to start playing at 6:30 p.m. New York time, but we won't actually get into the actual kind of having fun party atmosphere, including even the word will be in there as well. But Purim has no specific way you have to do it, this, that, or whatever. I know there's a lot of Ashkenazi influence that a lot of persons use, including a lot of Hebrew Israelites are using that because they're like, well, it's better than having nothing. But basically, there's no lawful edict as far as you must do this and you better do it in a certain way, like there are the big six. So we will celebrate it on March 3rd, 6:30 p.m. New York City time be when the music plays. 7 p.m. New York City time is when we'll actually start start with the celebration itself. We'll probably have the word preached somewhere around 8:30 New York time or so, something like that. We'll have a couple games. We'll probably bring back like a little Family Feud type stuff. Trying to work on something to where the babies can have something that they can play for maybe about 15 minutes. So if you want to invite them, or even if not, maybe we'll do something on their level, like a Family Feud or something. But trying to do a little game that they can play and things of that nature. Oh, okay. Yeah, it should have been sent out in the like how we send out those Google Calendar invites. It should have been out sent out on one of those. We should have had the three. But once again, if you just give me a reminder, I'll try to recall. But if you don't get it from me like later today, just send me a reminder, please. But yeah, so we sent out a couple recipes if you guys want to try that, just so we can kind of feel like we're, eating the same thing and stuff like that. But there's no 100%. You have to do anything a certain way. Don't feel pressed to do it. This is not Passover, where it's like you better have this to eat, etc., etc. All right. Don't also please don't forget, coming up soon, March the 18th is the first day of our new year. And right behind that, we're like the next week, we're going to be starting our 7 last words days, or evenings, which a lot of you already know about. If you don't know about, you'll see that pop up soon. We're still in the midst of removing the leaven from our home, so hopefully everything's going well. That's why some of the recipes I sent out also too are unleavened treats. Simple stuff too. I think one of them's like unleavened chocolate chip cookies and stuff like that. Like some stuff that we know you guys eat, but also some stuff that you might want to try that it brings back home, brings you back home, so to speak. Some back home recipes. It's important to have some of that stuff in your culture as well. So I'll probably be posting a few more of those. And what I'll do as well, I'll try to go on different social media platforms and see if I can put links in different places for you guys to be able to click on those as well. A lot of them are just other YouTube videos. I'm not going to reinvent the wheel. There's persons that have great recipes, so we'll let some of that go. We do have a couple. I have to look back in the Wayback Machine, so to speak. I think we have some of Elder Alma. I'm not sure if I did one or two or not, but of doing some recipes as well. I know we had some that we were recording and posting from back in the day. They're not necessarily, actually, I don't know if any of them were Hebrew Israelite dishes. I know Sister Judith had a thing that she was doing a couple years ago, and she was doing showing us how to cook, how to present food with not cooking it, how to make meals that are raw without actually having to cook the food, and still having a lot of great stuff to eat. So there's probably some of that floating around, or if she ever put up the channel, I'm not sure. We kind of stopped promoting it because I know she was trying to put it up on her stuff and we were sharing it. So we probably have some things out there too that we can share for you guys. But anyways, thank y'all for being on. I appreciate you. We probably won't do a shout out today, but I thank you all so much, and hopefully all is well with you. Thank you again. If there's anything we can do to help in any way, shape, or form with your journey, let us know. And that's all I have. So as always, we thank you. We give all honor and praise to the Most High. We give praise and honor to Him for my wife, the Honorable Alma, who lives a life that's able to be honored. To the ministerial staff, moderators, SOC, Lottie Dottie, everybody, thank you so much. Thank you for your prayers and encouragement. We're sending well wishes and the same back towards you. And yeah, remember as always that you're loved, you're necessary, you're majestic, you're fearfully and wonderfully made, and you, which is all of us working together, will be the reason why people who are in the system no longer have to be of it. Shalom, take care, shalom, and talk to you next time. Thank you again. Peace.